Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Econ Sean. Welcome to my tier list of every single minor improvement in Agricola. The occupations will be uploaded in a different video. This is every single minor improvement right now that exists in Agricola on the website boardgamearena.com, where I play extensively. What are my qualifications for posting a tier list? Well, I am consistently a top 10 player in Arena there. I'm consistently top 10 in ELO, and I hover around things. My average score tends to be between 50 and 51, which I think is pretty high. And I pride myself on sort of having very good drafts, and that tends to be my pride and joy. So we're going to make this tier list. This tier list is primarily focused on 4-player games with no additional action spaces. For 2 and 3-player games, 2-player games are very cutthroat, hurting the other person. It helps you. I'm not very familiar with 2-player games. In 3-player games, read tends to be very short, and so as a result, building lots of rooms tends to be hard unless you have things that can help you with that, so that tends to be good. 4-player, I feel, is the most balanced format, and that's why I played hundreds of games of 4-player. Additionally, additional action spaces adds in guaranteed family growth. If you have those, it makes things that give you lots of food really good. It makes things that give you easy access to rooms very good. Things that promote 2-room strategies are going to go down in value a little bit, but you can sort of adapt things. So really quickly, I just want to outline my definitions of things. One thing about Agricola, I think, is that there are no cards that are completely useless in a bunch of situations, and you should always take a tier list for any player with a grain of salt, because the best card in the game, or the card that I consider to be the best card in the game, I may not always pick over other cards. It might be the best because it's the most flexible card, right? It might be the best for other reasons, but every card is situationally relevant, and some cards might be better situationally than others, and so as a result, this tier list is not saying, oh, I should always pick cards in a higher tier above cards in another tier. This tier list is saying that if it's in a higher tier, it's going to perform better on average. There are going to be cards that are very low ceiling cards, but they have a high floor. So they have sort of low variance of play. There are also going to be cards that have a really high variance in terms of they have a really high ceiling but a really low floor. And so when that happens, I'm going to try and look at the average of those cards, or how I feel about playing them, how I feel about constructing a strategy, a draft around them. For draft formats, I'm going to be considering, I played a lot of different draft formats. I'm going to try and balance this around all the different draft formats and sort of talk about that, okay, what's going to happen in different draft formats with some of these cards, because some of these cards, the valuation is going to drastically change depending on the draft format. But I'm going to try and keep this with draft 8 in mind. I think draft 8 is sort of more balanced, but I will talk about differences between those, and that might enter into my valuations. So the tiers are going to be A, B, C, or D. A tier is for cards that are sort of the best of the best. They are very good cards. They're almost always going to be great, or if they're not always great, they lead to really degenerate combos. B tier is for cards that are pretty good but not incredible, or cards that are on average pretty good but not incredible. C is for cards that are okay. Maybe situationally they're very good, but only in a couple situations, but they're cards that are okay. D is for cards that are very situational, and when they're played, they're not great. So that's my way of thinking about the tiers. Is A is for really, really great cards. B is for okay cards that are maybe they're situationally really good, situationally okay. C is for cards that are average, not great, but maybe situationally they're good. And then D is for cards that are only very situational, and when they're situational, they're okay. Okay? And then we have banned tier. We have a couple banned cards that I will talk about when I get to them, but I'm not going to consider banned cards in my tier list because most of them are annoying. I don't play with the banned cards at all. So with that, I have Beanfield up for some reason. Let's go ahead and get started. So to start off, we have Acorn's Basket, and I'm not going to read through the descriptions because we have to get through a bunch of the cards, but I will have the card on screen. Firstly, we have Acorn's Basket. This card is fine. It on average is not great. It on average is fine. I'm tempted to play place this momentarily in like the C tier while I get things figured out. There's gonna be some movement, but like Acorn's Basket is like a low B, high C card. Like it's good if you can play it. It's not super powerful, but like it gives you, if you can play it, it gives you a bunch of boar. Boar's pretty good. There's not really a good payoff for boar other than a lot of food. There is like Truffle Slicer. Truffle Slicer is a nice reason to have boar, but typically you're not gonna play this till later on in the game. So it's like, okay, I put it in the C tier for now. I might move it around. Basket is a card that is really terrible. Basket is a card that like I almost never play. The only combos with it really are like sometimes you really badly need food, but I think Basket is like one of the least playable cards in the game. Basket is an example of a D tier card, like bottom of D tier, where like it is very situationally playable. The read cost is huge, and then when you do play it, it is pretty not a great effect, but sometimes you can need food, sometimes you can combo with Mushroom Collector, and it's like okay, and then it's fine. The next card is Beanfield. Beanfield, a card that is quite nice. Beanfield, a card that like being able to sow in fields that come off miners is so huge, because what happens in the like late game of Agricola is that like fields are like one of the most contested actions of all time, and when fields are very contested actions, like having ways to sow that come off your miners is really good. Additionally, it gives you a point for it too, so it like gives you a point. It's a way to sow veggies. Like it's super good. The requirements for it are not that bad. This is a card that's like pretty good on average. I'm not going to put it in A tier necessarily, but it's pretty good on average. Next, we have Big Country. Big Country, a card that is probably the bane of your existence if you play it a lot without the CD decks. With the CD decks, Big Country is still quite insane. There's a lot of stuff that you can do with Big Country where, like, so the classic Big Country play is that you play it with 2 rooms. And you build a bunch of fields in stage 1, you build your fences in stage 2, and then you get Big Country up before the second harvest. Big Country feeds you for a few rounds while you collect animals and do other things. This plan was very insane in the base deck. I think it was borderline bannable. I think it's still completely insane. There are a lot of cards that help this. I think actually Collector Big Country is very powerful. I've seen Collector Big Country do some really dumb things. One thing that you can do with Collector Big Country is that you can like get Reno parts in Reno very easily. You can get your animals very free. Like Big Country is still like super flexible. It's a super insane card, and like at lower tier tables, this card is a total monster. If there was an S tier, which I may make an S tier at the very end, I might put Big Country in S tier. I think it's a card that's like borderline bannable. I think if you play it on 2 rooms, you win such a high percentage of the time. Add that to the fact that you can also play it without 2 rooms. You can 3-room Big Country. You can build a bunch of rooms. You can get your stuff together. You can play it later in the game for a little bit of food, a little bit of points. Like, it's just like such an insane card. It has such insane flexibility. I hate passing it to people who I know are lower skill level than me, because I think it gives them a chance to beat me in a game where like there's a lot of competition for food or other things just because you're doing something so tangential to that. I think it's a very powerful card. It's very clearly A tier. Next, we have Blueprint. Blueprint I like a lot. Blueprint has a lot of variants on it. There are some games where Blueprint is awful, and there are some games where Blueprint is quite good. So like if you have a lot of miners in your hand that you want to play, Blueprint is terrible. Or if there's competition for Joinery Pottery BMW, Blueprint can be quite bad, because wasting a food on a miner that you're not getting any value out of is really bad. But it has a really high ceiling. The ceiling on this card is really high, where like you can get all the guilds very cheap. If you're playing it with something like Scholar, it makes Scholar able to get the guilds, which is completely insane. It has such a high variance. I think it's like kind of the bottom of B tier. I think if I'm going to place it like somewhere, I don't think it's quite as like, I think Acorn's Basket's a little bit worse. Acorn's Basket a little bit more situational. Blueprint's quite good. I think Blueprint sort of goes in the bottom of B tier, but I'm going to rearrange things later. Next, we have Bookcase. Anytime you play an occupation, you get a veggie. The occupation support in CD is completely insane. I mean, it's like so good. It is really nice to have. A lot of the occupations you can play a lot. In higher draft formats, the value obviously dramatically goes up, but also in CD, there's a lot of stuff to do with veggies. There's things like Carrot Museum, there's like Schnapps Distillery, there's a lot of cards that have usage for veggies in CD deck that like can really heavily use this card. If you don't have any way to use veggies, this card's not as good, but I think that I would put this like at the bottom of the A tier of cards. Like, it's a very good card. It's a very powerful effect, but it does take some setting up to do, and if you have nothing to do with the veggies, it's not as good as the next card that we're going to talk about, but it's still quite good. I still value it quite highly. Next, we have Bookshelf. Bookshelf is kind of like Bookcase, except for it just gives you 3 food, but takes longer to set up. Bookshelf is A tier card. And it's like not even close. Like in CD, I mean, I'm someone who really likes to form a big plan and play a lot of occupations. And like, if your plan is always to play a lot of occupations, like it allows you to play those occupations very easily when there is a food crunch. But then it also synergizes with all these other Oc cards super well. It makes it so that way when you do have to play occupations later on, there's not going to be some sort of food crunch for you. It's also worth a point for some reason. Like it just does everything that you want it to do. And like, even if you're not playing occupations, the floor on this card is still very high that like, okay, it's like a wood for a point and a couple food like that, or 3 food. That's really good. I mean, a wood for a point and 3 food is like really not bad at all. And if you play more Ox, then it's more food. So because it combos, it has such a high floor on the card. I think it's really good. Next, we have Bottles. Bottles is a card that I think is situationally okay, but it's never great. I think Bottles is like a candidate for like the top of D tier. I think Bottles is like, okay, maybe the bottom of C tier, but I guess I'll decide that later on. It's a card that like, you don't want to play it early on because it kills your tempo. You only want to play it late if you don't have very, very family members. If you have a lot of family members for it, it's really not good at all. It's just really not great. So like, I think that Bottles is, you know, it's okay. I think it's more top of D tier, bottom of C tier. I don't think it's great. So, next we have, I gotta change it on the sheet. Next we have Bread Paddle. Bread Paddle. Bread Paddle is kind of interesting. There are a lot of interesting combos with baked bread stuff. Typically, there are very few instances when you really need a lot of baked bread actions, but it can be pretty good when you get those baked combos and you can play Ox, you can bake bread. It needs to line up pretty situationally. I think that it's in sort of the C tier of like, situationally, it's good, and then when it's not good, you really don't want to play it. Paying a wood for a food and having it do nothing is not very good. So I think this is a candidate for C tier. I don't know if it's better or worse than Acorn's Basket. Probably the ceiling on Bread Paddle is higher than the ceiling on Acorn's Basket, but the floor is a lot lower. So it makes it a little bit hard to rank, but they're around similar rank. Next we have Brook. Brook is a card that's very situational because you have to have a person on fishing and then take starting player. And like, I did have a game recently where like Brook was completely nuts because there was like no food in the game, and I like, it lined up perfectly that I was able to play it. But it's a card that you don't like play around. In 2-player, this card's insane, but like, we're not grading this on 2-player. It's a very situational card. When you do play it, you're going to be happy that you played it, but like, you have to give up a lot of tempo to play it, because ideally, like on turn 3, you want to play 3 food fishing into Brook, and 3 food fishing into Brook is like not a very good action in general. This is like a D tier card. The ceiling on this card is also not super high. I think it's a little bit better than Bottles on average, so I'll put it a little bit above Bottles. Next we have Butter Churn. Butter Churn I like a lot. I mean, it's a wood for a point, which is already quite good, and then every once in a while you'll have a game where it gives you like a ridiculous amount of food. I think that it's definitely better than Acorn's Basket. It's definitely better than Bread Paddle. I don't know if it is in the B tier, but it's definitely like top of C, bottom of B. I'm gonna put it here for now. It's a card that like, at its worst is okay, at its best is like fine, but not great. It's not like a Loom or something like that, but it's pretty good. I like it a lot. I'm gonna put it there. Next we have Canoe. Fishing cards in general, there are really not that many fishing combos, and there's not a good justification for fishing combos. The only usage for Reed is BMW in this. Like, if you have a carpenter's parlor and you can build lots of rooms, then Canoe stuff can be okay, but like, you really want Harpooner. Harpooner's like the card that you want, and like Canoe is okay. I really find it very rare that I ever want to play Canoe. I find it so rare that I ever want to play Canoe. It's better than Brook. It's more playable than Brook, I think, because it's worth a point, but I really rarely find I want to play it. I mean, there's so few fishing combo cards in this set that I just don't want to play it, so I probably put it in D tier. I think it's worse than Bread Paddle in my opinion. I'm never happy playing this card. It eats a lot of wood. It has an Oc requirement, which is kind of a pain. Fishing combos I think are just bad in this set, so yeah. Next we have Caravan. Caravan is super broken. Obviously deserves to be banned. It's so dumb. It's like outrageously dumb. And so it like clearly deserves to be banned. I don't really need a provide explanation. Like, you can start player Caravan to jump the family growth queue, which is really obnoxious when that happens. The 2-room strategies become completely insane. It's insane in like all forms of format. It's a very frustrating card to play against. It's just very good. It should be banned. Next, we have Carpenter's Parlor. Carpenter's Parlor is so good. Carpenter's Parlor is definitely an A-tier card. Building rooms for 2 wood to read is so ridiculous. Like a 3 wood discount on rooms is really massive on a minor improvement. This has always been one of the best cards. It's very, very, very good. There are a lot of cards that combo with it that build around it. The main constraint is getting the read and making sure that you're fed, but given that you can do both those things, this card is a total monster. I think it is better than Bookshelf Bookcase. I don't think it's better than Big Country, hilariously. I think Big Country is just more powerful. I think you're going to win games more often with Big Country. When you play Carpenter's Parlor and Family Grow Flips in round 7 and you're all in on building a bunch of rooms and growing, you're going to be in a bad shape. You're not going to have a good time when that happens. And so I think for that reason, I'm putting it lower than Big Country. I think Big Country just is going to win more frequently. So I'm going to put lower than Big Country. But it's obviously a very good card. 3 wood discount on rooms is probably going to buy you like, 6 to 9 wood throughout the game, even though it costs a wood, right? So it's like, 5 or 8 wood, which is insane for a minor improvement. It also does it on the build room spot, which is just like a natural synergy because you want wood when you're building rooms anyways. So I'm going to put it there. Next, we have Carriage Trip. Carriage Trip, super annoying card. Very, very bannable. I'm so glad this card got banned. It is super obnoxious in like when you're fighting for the family growth queue and someone has 2 rooms, they can go like start player into grow to guarantee they get the next growth. In round like 12 and 13, people can start player Carriage Trip to then keep start player and take the best action on the board. They can do it off family growth in the mid game to guarantee they get an insane action that they wouldn't otherwise get, like a 6 wood or something like that. Completely obnoxious card that completely breaks Agricola rules, and I am very happy to see it banned. Carrot Museum is a card that has, like, the floor on this card is actually pretty low because it costs you a ton of tempo to play this card. It costs an insane amount of tempo. Getting 2 clay and 1 wood in the early game is completely just, like, it's hard to do, and you have to play it in round 8 or before. It's very hard to do, but the ceiling on this card is completely insane. If you have like, Childless, or you have Bookcase, or you have like some way to get like a ridiculous amount of veggies, like this card is so ridiculous. I mean, it has a real legitimate cost associated with it, but it has like one of the highest ceilings of a card, but also one of the lowest floors because like you can actually crush your game trying to set up this card. Like even though it's worth 2 points, like that is it's a nasty cost to pay 2 clay and a wood, and sometimes have to take like a really weird improvement action in a weird spot in the growth queue to do it. It can be a little bit awkward. And so for that reason, I'm going to put it, I think it's still an A tier card. It's still very good. The problem is that you're not going to necessarily draft this highly all the time, but the ceiling on it is so high. I think I'm going to put it below Bookcase, Bookshelf. I think that like I don't remember which one this is. I guess this is Bookcase, right? So yeah, Bookcase I think is like, I mean, Bookcase is like a little bit more flexible. You can do a little bit more with it, but like it's very similar. Like these two are probably very interchangeable, so I'll put it there for now. I might rearrange stuff at the end, so I might solicit some chat feedback at the end and see what people think about the micro rearrangements. But yeah, we'll do that for now. Next, we have Chicken Coop. Chicken Coop is okay. The read cost on it is very awkward. There are a lot of combos with this card where like you can play it with, I think the card is called, I don't remember what the card is called, but there's a card that's like, it gives you 2 wood when it comes in, and then you pay a food for 2 wood in a minor improvement instead of paying the wood cost of it. Like that card, that there's a combo there. There's combos with the card that makes things cost less clay. Like there's some combos there. The read cost I find very awkward. I still find 4-player games to be pretty read tight in general. So paying a read for a chicken coop is really not advisable. I think this is a card that's like a good candidate for like in the middle of C tier. Like this card is not like a great card. It's like an average card. When you play it, it's pretty good. The problem is that playing it is pretty awkward most of the time. I think around here is good. Maybe I have to mess around with these, but like somewhere in the C tier I think is fine. I'm not super high on chicken coop. It's really weird to get out. Next we have Clay Embankment. Clay Embankment can be situationally completely insane. There are some strategies that you can play that just like stockpile a ton of clay, and when you do that, and you can playing this card and getting like, you know, anywhere from 3 to 6 clay with it is completely insane. And it's like really good, and the cost to having it in your hand is like pretty low. Like when you pass it to someone else, like adding clay to the game is not a really big deal, and like you can sometimes play it for like a couple clay and it's still fine. I actually rate this card pretty highly. I mean, it's definitely like bottom of B tier, top of C tier. Where like I guess it probably is like top of C tier. I think this card is like a really good card to have. The ceiling on this card is very high. I have gotten like 6 clay off of this before, and it is completely insane when you're doing that, because typically you're stockpiling clay to like convert it, like to build into rooms, or to use with pottery, or to convert using some card that lets you convert clay into stone. Like Clay Embankment is just like really good. Or yeah, with Rand Clay, it's also really good. It's a card that's not always going to be great though. Like the floor on it is like you play it for a clay or two, or sometimes you don't get to play it at all. So I think it goes around the C tier. All right, next we have Clay Supply. Clay Supply is a card that if you are in like the 3rd or 4th seed of a draft, this is a card you pick a little higher, because in the 3rd or 4th seed of a draft, you really want a card that if you get starting player in round 1, you want to be able to take it with a good action. It's such a good card. I mean, 3 clay that comes in like immediately is so good in the early game, because in the early game 2 clay is like an action that you would take anyways. Why not pay a food for 3 clay? In the middle game it can be nice too to supplement with a lot of clay. Clay Supply is like better than Clay Embankment. It has a lower ceiling, but the floor on this card is like super high. This is a card that goes in the B tier. I think it probably goes above the blueprints. It's pretty good. It's just a really good card. It is a good reason to take starting player. I'm never unhappy playing this card off start player. There are situations where you don't play it, but then that's fine, because then you're playing better things instead. So next we have Clay Supports. Clay Supports is an A tier card. It goes up in this A tier. It's sort of like the creme de la creme of building cards. If you have not seen a like 10-room game, if you see a 10-room game, this card is probably the reason that this person's building 10 rooms, because you can combo it with like Bricklayer to make your rooms only cost a wood and a reed. You can combo this with Frame Builder to make your rooms cost 2 wood and a reed. You can combo it with like Straw Thatched Roof to remove the reed cost. Like, there are a lot of combos with this card. On base value, this card is just insane too. On base value, this card is completely insane. Like, it allows you to build rooms for like completely efficiently in clay. And typically what you can do in a normal game, if you have no combo piece with it, is that you can build your first room in wood, then later run out to clay, and later build 2 rooms, because now you've reduced the reed cost. So I mentioned that reed is kind of an issue in CD, but like with Clay Supports, like the reed cost is not a big deal anymore. You can very easily get the resources to build 2 rooms, because it's like a mix and match of resources. You don't have to like specialize in one and rely on taking all that off the board. So it's clearly an A tier. I think it is slightly worse than Carpenter's Parlor. The ceiling on Clay Supports is high, but there are some games where it's a little awkward to get out. So I think I put it a little bit below Carpenter's Parlor, but honestly, they're very comparable and close, and there are some occupation, like sometimes I will have a draft where I prefer Clay Supports, sometimes I have a draft where I prefer Carpenter's Parlor. It just depends on what else you have. But they're very comparable. They're very similar. Clay Pipe. Clay Pipe is like okay. Clay Pipe is very good when you have a lot of actions. When you have no actions, Clay Pipe is awful. But I think it's like situationally okay. It's like bottom of C, top of D tier. I really am not happy to play. Like, there are some games where you play a clay pipe and it never triggers, and then you just waste a clay for no reason. And like that can happen very easily. I think that like also sometimes with clay pipe you get into a trap. I think I'm gonna put it at the top of D tier for now. I think also with clay pipe you can get into a trap sometimes where like you play clay pipe and then feel like you have to feed with the clay pipe, so you take actions like that are resources that you shouldn't otherwise take to play the clay pipe, because in your mind you're just like, well, I played this card. If I don't get use out of it, then I wasted this clay, and that makes you take actions that are worse. I think it traps you in that way. I think that like clay pipe is not a super good card. Taking 7 building resources in a turn is very difficult to do. But like if you can use it, it has situationally good usage. Like if you have a lot of family members, this card is quite nice. But like a lot of times you will play it and not have good stuff to do with it. So for that reason, I'm going to put it in the D tier. I can see upgrading it to C eventually, but for now I'm putting it in D tier. Next we have Clearing Spade. Clearing Spade can be nice, but it's a card that I find that like I frequently will waste a wood on and be unhappy about it later on. Like if you play this card too early before you know whether you're going to use it or not, sometimes you just don't use it and it feels really bad. It's just a card that like looks nice and enticing because it's like, oh yeah, I can move my crops around later on in the game in order to harvest more crops and then resow them faster. And sometimes that plan works out, but then other times it really doesn't work out and you're just sort of stuck with this Clearing Spade in play that does nothing, or like you feel like you have to use it, right? It's like a clay pipe problem where you feel like you have to use it. The ceiling on this card is that you get like a couple extra crops. So like at most this card is like, I mean actually the ceiling on this card is that you use this in the early game to get like a ton of grain or something like that. If you have like 3 fields and 1 grain, you can sow 1 grain, move all the grain over to other fields, get all the grain off, then you can resow the grain. But like at most it's like a couple of crops here and there. Like I don't think I can justify putting this in the D tier, and I don't even know if I would put above clay pipe. I think it's better than these cards than like Canoe and these other cards, but I don't think it's that good. But it's situationally useful. Next we have Corn Scoop. Corn Scoop is a card that like is like a bottom of C tier card. It's okay. It's fine. I'm not like there are some times once again where it's useless, but the ceiling on it's a lot higher, right? So like Clearing Spade doesn't always give you the extra crops that you need. Corn Scoop for sure does, and Corn Scoop can actually have nice combos with baking strategies. You can like sow sometimes with it. I think Corn Scoop is quite good. I think I put Corn Scoop like somewhere in the middle of C tier here. I think I like it about as much as Corn Scoop, maybe about the same as Acorn's Basket. It's pretty similar to all of those. I don't think I value it any higher than that, so I put it here. Well, I might switch things around at the end. We'll see at the end how I feel about things. I'll take another look at the end. Crosscut Wood is banned. This one might come as a surprise to some of you who have not been paying attention to the discussions on the forums, but like it's a card that is really annoying to play with and against. When you play with it, like sometimes you can stack up like 10 stone and just get 10 wood off of it. It's really broken to do that. It ruins the wood economy in the game because other people are going to be like taking wood of like one way to attack players in a game where like you're collecting lots of stone for mages improvements. One of the main ways that you can combat that is by taking all the wood off the board so that they can't structure a farm. And Crosscut Wood solves that for really no cost, because passing this to someone else, it's not like someone else is really going to be able to do this. Like it's not great. Someone else would have to collect a bunch of stone, and then sometimes it just adds like 10 wood for one person, which I think is completely broken as an effect, and like it just like feels bad to have someone add like 10 wood to the game and then use it to fence on you. Like it's just a dumb card. Like I don't think it's particularly insane, but it's very annoying to play against. I think it's not great, so I think that I'm fine with this card being banned. I was a supporter of this card being banned, so. All right. And yeah, I see chat about the cards. That's good. Continue chatting. I might look at I'm glancing at the chat, but I might look at the chat a little bit more at the end. So continue chatting, chat. And next we have Drinking Trough. Drinking Trough is like the definition of a D tier card, but honestly, Drinking Trough is more useful than you would think it is. It combos with Organic Farmer to give you lots of points for cards, right? Organic Farmer says you get a point if a pasture has 3 more animal capacity and is holding at least 1 animal, right? So Drinking Trout is very good with that. It can also be good in games where like you want a lot of animals. It's not a super insane card. It can also help you sometimes when like you fence 1 pasture and like you need a little bit of extra help. It's good with Collector actually, because Collector you really want to gather a lot of animals, and so it can save you a lot of fence parts. So it has like situational usages. Oh, did I say trout? Yeah, it's trough. Yeah, drinking trough. Yeah, thank you. So I think it goes around here. I think I actually like it more than clay pipe. I think it's like when it is good, it's very good because animal space is really nice. Animal space is so nice when it's good. And when it's bad, like you're probably playing it with an organic farmer or something like that, where like it's not too bad. But like clearly it belongs in D tier. It's very situational. Next, we have Dutch Windmill, which, as far as I'm concerned, has no text. It's literally just 2 wood, 2 stone for 2 points most of the time when I look at this. I almost have never seen the baked bread part of this card used. It very seldom gets used, so therefore, it is okay when you can play this card for cheap. So if you have a card that discounts wood or stone, this card can be nice to have in your hand. And so as a result, I sort of feel like this is like clearly a D tier card. I think it's a little bit better than Bottles. Honestly, like Bottles is good with identically Big Country, but it's not very good. It's very similar to Bottles. I think it's better than Bottles. I think there are more situations where you play Dutch Windmill than Bottles, because Bottles you really only want to play with like Big Country and something else. I think that Bottles is not good. And yeah, so I'm pointing out that maybe there should be a different tier for Dutch Windmill and Basket, excluding Bottles from that list, which I think I'd put Bottles in that list, honestly. But like honestly, there are cards that I would put there. So, all right, next we have Dwelling Mound. We're getting to all the situational cards here. I think that people sleep on Dwelling Mound. I think Dwelling Mound is actually okay. Granted, I have not played Dwelling Mound in any game in like the 100 of CD games I played, but there are times when I've said like, hey, if I had nothing to do early on, I want to take a starting player early on for some action. Dwelling Mound is like fine. I think Dwelling Mound is okay. I think that there are situations where Dwelling Mound is good. 1 food for 3 points is like not bad. Like if you think about Lantern House, which is a card that's quite good, you have to take 2 actions to set up the Lantern House, right? You have to take a 3 wood action, and then you have to take a start player without playing any Ox. Dwelling Mound, it gives you 3 points immediately, which is less than Lantern House, but it comes at the cost of costing you a little bit of food later, which if you have a lot of access to food, paying a food per field is not really that big of a cost. I think that Dwelling Mound has playability. I think people sleep on it a little bit. It is really annoying sometimes. There are a lot of games where you really don't want to play it because it's annoying, but like I think on start player early on, it can be a card that's pretty good to play. I think at draft 7, this is a card that I would lean more towards playing, because in draft 7, you might be missing a minor to play on starting player in the early game. I think that this card can be fine if you're doing a very high, like a really high food strategy, and you're planning on having a lot of food and maybe not a lot of actions, in which case the extra food to plow fields is not going to be too bad. So I don't think it's that bad. I think people play it a lot less than they should. I think there are situations where it's playable. That being said, it's still obviously a D tier card. I value it. I think it's more in the upper echelon of D tier. But I think that like the situations where you play it are a lot rarer, but the ceiling on the card's very high. I mean, a 3-point action early on is pretty huge. Probably it's above Clearing Spade, but below Clay Pipe. I think that's about where I put it. All right, next is Education Bonus. Education Bonus is quite nice. It is bad. You have to play the 6th Ock with Education Bonus. You have to play the 6th Ock. And the reason is that the field is the main reason you're getting Education Bonus. But like, you don't have to play this card early. Like, you really are not obligated to play this card too early, because like whenever you play it, it's going to be quite good. Like if you play it with that 4 Ox in play, it's a veggie in a field, which is completely insane. Like for a minor improvement, a veggie in a field is like completely nuts. If you can play it early on and get more resources from it, it's awesome. But like a minor improvement that gives you a veggie in a field is insane. Granted, you have to be playing a lot of Ox to play this. I tend to play a lot of Ox because I like formulating my game plan around playing lots of things. That just is more fun for me. I enjoy fun stuff in Agricola. But I think that this card is quite good. I think that it clearly belongs to the B tier of cards that are just quite nice. I think that I put it around the Clay Supply. The problem is that the floor on education bonus is pretty low. Like, if you're not playing 6 Ox, this card is not very good. But if you're playing 6 Ox, this card is fantastic. I would pick this card over Beanfield or Clay Supply or anything else in the B tier. But if you're not playing the Ox, it's not very good. So maybe, like, on average, it depends on your draft style. So, like, for me, I think it's above Clay Supply and probably above Beanfield. For other people that don't play a lot of Ox on average, if you're more of a player of, like, okay, let's play the board, let's try and build a farm all the time, then, like, probably you're going to rate Education Bonus a little bit on the lower side of Beanfield. But it really just depends on your style of play. For me, I think it's, like, top of B tier because I tend to try and draft a lot around my Ox. All right, next we have Farm Store. Farm Store, the effect on Farm Store is so good. It's really, really nice. But it once again, like Carrot Museum, the cost of getting this out is real. This has a really insane cost of getting it out. Like 2 clay and 2 wood early on is huge, and the effect eats more food. So, like, instead of buying that fireplace that you're buying, or like the cooking hearth, you're putting time into building a farm store instead, and like it can be really awkward. The nice thing about Farm Store is that you can play it a little bit later in the game and be fine. It's very good when you have guilds. One nice thing that you can do with Farm Store is that with guilds, you can eat with the guilds after the feeding phase of the harvest still, because it's still in the harvest. So one thing that you can do with Farm Store is that if you have a guild that you're fed and you still want to use the guild in the harvest, like I have a joinery, I can then buy a wood and immediately cook the wood after the harvest, which is kind of cool. So like with guilds, it has a lot of utilization. With veggie cards, it's very good. It's a pretty flexible card. It just is really hard to get out. There are a lot of games where it's not going to be justifiable to get out, or it's going to be a mistake. I think it's sort of a nice C tier card. The ceiling on this card is quite good, but it is really hard to get out. It's sort of in the chicken coop type of deal where like it's very hard to get out, but I put it somewhere around there. And yeah, as you met, yeah, it's very hard to get out with Carrot Museum too, but like it can be good with other veggie support cards too, because paying a food for a veggie is like fine if you can convert veggies into 5 food, then that's going to be pretty good. All right, next we have Feed Fence. Some of the cards have scroll down text, by the way. I couldn't capture all that on the screen. I wish I could, but that's okay. Feed Fence is a card that is like, it's okay. If you're planning on building 4 stables, it's a wood for 6 food, which is good. It also lets you build stables with clay, which has fringe usage, since building a stable for a clay tends to be really, really nice. The problem is that, like, you don't tend to take, like, if you're building rooms a couple times, then, like, you know, maybe it's fine. It can give you a couple food here or there, but, like, that effect is not great. This is a card that's, like, I think it's better than, like, anything in the D tier, I think. So it's, like, bottom of C tier, but I think Bread Paddle on average is going to be a little bit better. So I put it at the bottom of C tier here. Next, we have Feed Pellets. Feed Pellets gives you a sheep for free, which is insane. And converting a veggie to an animal is, like, so huge. Like, you can convert a veggie to an animal and then breed the animal. This card has combos with Sheep Walker. This card is, like, so good. I'm never, ever unhappy to have this card in my hand because, like, it's always playable at all stages of the game. You can play it early on for a sheep. You can play it at the last turn of the game for a sheep. Like, it is so good. And then it has utilization above that. Like, this card is, like, a B tier card, very obviously. It's not, like, a super elite card, but it's a card that's like so good. I'm never unhappy to have it. Probably this card is like around Beanfield. It might be slightly worse than Beanfield. The sewing on the Beanfield is like so crazy. I do like Beanfield a lot, but like it's around there. It's around there. It's very close to Education Bonus too. Like between these 3, I have to reevaluate this later. I'll have to think about it. But it's around there. Field fences, sorry, not to be confused with feed fences, not to be confused with feed fences over here. Field fences is a card that is really, really good. Getting, like, fence actions can be really tight towards the end of the game, and this, like, gives you a bunch of wood, too. Like, if you plow your fields in a way, like, you can plow it in, like, an L shape, you can plow it in, like, a line on the side, and then fence around that. Like, there's a lot of ways that you can plow that makes this like so good. Getting to like Family Grow Fence is like so insane. It gives you such good tempo. I think this card is like the bottom of A tier, the top of B tier. This card is really good. It's really good. It's not as good as these other cards, but I think it's like quite a powerful card. I mean, it's like paying 2 food for an action and 3 wood, which is nuts on a minor improvement action. Like, it's so good. I think I put it below Carrot Museum, but it's really, really good. Next, we have Fishing Net. Fishing Net's a card that's actually quite good. I said that paying a reed for a miner is rough with Chicken Coop, and that's because it comes with other costs too. You got to pay wood or clay for it. Having one incidental reed floating around for Fishing Net is not that hard to do, and there are some games where you, like, most of the time, it's going to be worth a couple food, or it's going to secure fishing for yourself, which sometimes you want. But it's a reed for a bonus point, which at its floor is fine, and then it gives you a couple of extra food, which is fine. And if someone else, God forbid, is doing fishing stuff, then Fishing Net is a total monster. If someone's relying on Harpooner for food and you drop this, you're going to have a really, really good time and get a lot of food off of this. So I think this is a card I put in the C tier. I think I put this pretty highly in the C tier, actually. It's like around here. It's around this section. I put it a little higher than Chicken Coop, but not by much. I think it's a little bit below Butter Churn. I think Butter Churn a little bit more useful, but this card's quite good. I think people sleep on this card a lot. It's quite strong. Flail is a card that the floor on Flail is so good. Paying a wood for 2 food is actually just like really fine on its own. And then every once in a while you have Bake Bread strats, and the Bake Bread strats, it's nuts. I don't like relying on the plow spots to bake bread. And the reason for that is that relying on the plow spots to bake bread is like really risky, because like you don't want to plow really until the late game. And if you don't, if you, sometimes you want to plow in the mid game, like sometimes you want to plow then. But like when you're plowing, if your plow gets blocked and you're relying on that for food with this, then I don't really think that you don't want to rely on this for food. That being said, it can be quite good. This card is very nasty if you have lots of ways to bake bread. I think that this card is like maybe the top of C tier, like the bottom of B tier. I think this card's good. But a wood for 2 food is like so good. It's really good. Probably I'll put this at the top of C tier for now. It's not quite in the B tier of cards that I'm like really happy to play, but like it's pretty good. A wood for 2 food is pretty nuts. I don't know if I'd rather have this than Butter Churn. Maybe it's below Butter Churn. Butter Churn's so good. Yeah, I put a little bit below Butter Churn. Maybe around here is good. Yeah, Clay Embankments is a card. Maybe I'm changing my mind on Clay Embankments too. Maybe Clay Embankments is a little lower. So I'll change it around later on. We'll do some switching later on. We'll switch it around. I'll approximate, and then we'll see how I feel at the end. Foreign aid looks terrible because it's like, okay, I can't plow, so I can't renovate with fences. Not being able to renovate with fences is huge, by the way. It leaves yourself really open to getting reno blocked later on. It's really, you have to be really cognizant of that when you play the card. You can't family grow with that room either. So like the only way to play this card is that you have to be building 5 rooms, or you have to be building 4 rooms and doing something really good. But if you're building 5 rooms, this card is completely insane. It will feed you for your first 2 harvests while you're setting things up, right? I mentioned one problem with the big room strats is that you tend to have food issues early on because you're focusing so much on building lots of rooms and trying to get ahead of other people in growth. This card solves all of that very cleanly. If you're building lots of rooms, this card's like a natural complement to that. If you play this card, if you're drafting this card and you're not planning on building 5 rooms, it should only be as a contingency plan in case you get completely stuffed on food. And in that case, it's fine. Like, it's fine to have around. Like, if you get stuffed on food, then it's nice to have a foreign aid to just play. That way you can feed, and then you can worry about the consequences later on. This card's very clearly a B tier card. I'm going to put it relatively high in the B tier. When this card's good, this card's insane. When this card is bad, it's not very good. I think on average, it is better than everything here, actually. I think it's better than everything here. I don't think it's an A tier card, but I think on average it's just better than everything there. It's very good when it's good. When it is good, it will win you the game outright because you won't have food. You'll have food all of a sudden. You'll be able to take a starting player action with the next turn. Like, it's very good. You can do it on Family Grow. You can do it up to round 12, so you can do it like a little later in the game too. It's so insane when you can play it. Like, when it's bad, it's bad though. When it's bad, it's bad. But if you can play around it well, then total monster of a card. All right, Game Trade. Game Trade is pretty good. It's very situational. Like, you're not going to have 2 sheep all the time, but if you have a lot of sheep, then having 2 sheep and converting 2 sheep into 1 of each animal is great. It's a really good exchange. It solves a lot of animal issues in the late game. If you're having trouble getting animals, if you have lots of sheep floating around, people keep hating your animals, I think it's quite good. It is very situational. You will not play this every game, but if you do play it, it's probably really, really good for you. This kind of goes in the bottom of C tier, I think. I think it's above like drinking trough, but I think that it's quite good if you can play it. Like maybe it's around drinking troughs level. I don't know. I'll move things around. This one's a little closer to me. I'll put it in the bottom of C tier for now. Next we have Granary. Granary just gives you a bunch of grain. This card's fine. I'm never unhappy to play this card. It gives you a good amount of grain. It's worth a point. You can pay either with clay or with wood. The 3 clay costs or the 3 wood costs can be kind of huge early on. Like playing this early on is not great, but if you have a lot of resources, it can be good to play. It can be awkward to set up sometimes, and like you can't play it in the late game because then it won't give you clay. Like if you played around 9, it's still fine, but it's a little bit hard to get up, but it is worth a point, so it's kind of nice. I think it definitely goes in the middle here around the like chicken coop fishing net tier of things. I think somewhere around here is good. Where am I going to put this? Above fishing net for sure above fishing net. Around there is good. I think maybe it's better than flail on average. It's very close to flail. I think this is close enough, so that's close enough to me. I think that's close enough. So all right, we're expanding a little bit. That's fine. That's why we have this handy dandy thing here. That way I can go to my next card. All right, next we have Half Timbered House. Half Timbered House is a card in classic Agricola. You could do things like stack Half Timbered House with like other stone point cards, and it was really busted. Half Timbered House has a built-in sort of safety valve against that. You can't stack the points with other cards. Not that there are any in this. There's no like chief or chief's daughter or anything like that that gives you points for stone houses. But so it's like fine. I don't think this card is great. I haven't seen this card played with like a 10-room house yet, where like you get a 10-room house and you play Half Timbered House and like get to pog off with it. But like I think that like on average this card's gonna be worth like 4 points, which is good. Increasing your point ceiling is good, but like it's really hard to play. It's really hard to play. The cost is very awkward. A lot of times you will spend too many actions trying to play it, and it won't be worth it. It still is good. It still is quite good. Increasing your point ceiling is good. I think it's kind of like a bottom B tier in this set. Like, it's not amazing. I would rather have a lot of other cards, but like it's still good. It could maybe even be top of C tier. It's a card that every once in a while you can do really good things with it. Every once in a while it's very convenient to play. It's very fun to play with also. That's worth noting. Not that factors into the rankings here, but it's pretty good. I like it a lot. But sometimes it will do nothing and be stuck in your hand. It's very awkward to play. Hand plow is so good. Hand plow is like really good. Paying a wood for a field is completely insane. In the early game, it's nuts because like very often you will end up with 3 wood into starting player, or you'll play an Ock that like you can play an Ock that gives you wood into starting player with it. Like you can just stockpile wood and then use it for a starting player. Like it's very, very good. I like hand plow a lot. Hand plow is like very clearly a B tier card. I think hand plow I like probably about here. Maybe Beanfield's a little bit worse, actually. I like Handplow a lot. Handplow is really good. Maybe Beanfield's a little better. Maybe Beanfield's a little bit better than this, but it's around there. It's like around that spot. It's around that spot. I think it's fine. And also, so that's a good point. That's what we're talking about. Like, why is Half Timbered House like so much better than Bottles? Bottles costing you food is so awful. And like it costs so much food to play. Like it never is convenient to play. Half Timbered House, you can like play it by like you're collecting wood for other things, you're collecting clay for other things, maybe you're collecting stone and reed for other things. Like it's a little bit easier to play, and like sometimes also the ceiling on the card's very high. Where like if you play it with clay supports, right, then like you can get like a huge stone house and it's good. Bottles is small. It's a little different though because the food costs. So anyways, I think that's where I stand on it. All right, we have Hard Porcelain. Hard Porcelain, when it's good, it is crazy. When you have insane access to clay, this card is so insane. because like getting a lot of stone for no cost, like if you have a loam pit or something like that gives you like infinite access to clay, or you have like a clay hut builder or something like that, like this card is so ridiculous. The problem is that like the floor on this card is very low. The floor on this card is that it does nothing, but the ceiling is very high. This clearly belongs in the C tier of cards. I don't know where in the C tier. I'm probably willing to put it. It's like around the fishing net level. It's like around here. It's sort of in the middle a little bit. Like it's a little worse than Granary on average, I think. Maybe it's better than Granary on average. Yeah, on average it could be better than Granary. On average, is it better than Flail? Yeah, it's probably better than Flail on average too. I don't think on average is better than Barter Churn. Yeah, about there is good. That's about where I put it. Herring Pot. Herring Pot is a card that, like, it looks so good, but the problem is that all the other fishing cards suck, and, like, the best combo with this card is to have Bricklayer in play so that it's free, play it off Bricklayer, and get some food off of it for free. Like if you're playing it for a clay, it's really awkward to get a single clay early on in the game. It costs you like that one clay is huge, and you play it on minor improvement action, and then when you play it, people are just gonna block your fishing. It makes fishing like really awkward to play. If you can play it for cheap, there are games where it can be like 6 to 9 food, but like the problem is that you really shouldn't be fishing that much, because fishing is just a bad action always. There's no way you can make fishing good unless you have Harpooner and you have a huge family, in which case playing Herring Pot's going to be really awkward most of the time. So like this card is not playable most of the time. I definitely put it in the D tier. It's probably better than Dwelling Mound on average. Like, it's close here. I don't think it's not good at all, but I think it's like somewhere in this ballpark. It might be slightly better than Brook. I actually think I'm ranking a little low. I think when Brook is good, it's very good. I think I might actually move Brook up. Looking at these, I might move Brook up to like here. I think Brook is just better than Herring Pot. I'm looking at it and like Brook, I'm just like, okay, I'd rather have Brook than all these cards. It's like, yeah, it's somewhere around there. Maybe it's worse than Dwelling Mound on average. Yeah, I'll put it around there for now. All right. We have a lot of cards to get through, so I'll just keep trucking on, and then I'll rearrange it at the end. Horse-drawn Boat. Horse-drawn Boat is so good. Really good card. Definitely somewhere like top of B tier, lower A tier. It gives you so much food because like it can give you breeding sheep. It can give you lots of food if you just have a fireplace and you need to cook food. Like it is so good. And if you try and play it early, like the 3-hour requirement's a little stringent, but like if you play it, you're frequently turning 2 wood into like 3 sheep and 3 food, which is just like completely nuts. I think probably this is like another card that's like, I think this is like bottom of A tier. This is a very premium card. It's really high quality. I really like this card a lot. It's better than 4 and 8 on average, I think. I think that it's a little worse than Feed Fences, but not by that much. So that's about where I put it. Hunting Trophy, a card that's very situational. Doing fences with this, like if you can play this and then do a Ren Fences with it, do a farm redevelopment, saving 3 wood is like the equivalent of 2 points. But the problem is that you have to cook a wild boar. So like it's a very situational card. Like you have to be able to cook a wild boar. You have to be renovating later on for it to be really good. Like frequently it's like, okay, if you're cooking a wild boar, you just get a point for free off of a minor improvement. That's like a little awkward to play. But like if you can use it, it's very good. I think this is in the C tier, somewhere at the bottom again. I don't think it's better than, it might be better than Game Trade on average, but like it's somewhere around here. I'd probably rather have Feed Fences. I'd rather have Feed Fences here than this, but it's kind of close. Like it's the bottom of C tier here. Next we have Hutch. Hutch is quite good. The read cost is a little teeny bit awkward. It's a little bit awkward. But like when you can play this card, it's just 6 food, which is a lot of food. It comes in like a weird instance, like the food is like it comes later, but 6 food and a point for this is pretty good. I'm always pretty happy getting. I would be pretty happy getting Hutch and playing it most of the time. This is like a B tier card. It's at the bottom of B tier. I think it's better than Half Timbered House on average. Probably better than Blueprint too. It's pretty good. Like sometimes it's really awkward. Like it's a little bit less awkward than Chicken Coop. and it gives like basically just as much food as chicken coop does. So it being a little bit less awkward than chicken coop, like that one resource is actually a huge difference. The one resource is a huge difference because like very frequently you will have like 6 wood when you build your first room. So like the 1 wood versus 2 wood cost I think is like really massive, and it does make a big difference between hutch and chicken coop here. Like I'm looking at these two and they're in a very different spot, but like I honestly feel a lot better playing hutch than I do chicken coop. It gives you the food faster as well. That's definitely something not to be discounted, right? You prefer food sooner rather than later always. But yeah, like you'd rather just have it than chicken coop. So I put it about here. I think it's about right. Like some games it's gonna be really awkward to play and you don't want to force it, but most of the time it's gonna be pretty good. So next we have Junk Room. Junk Room is like so awkward to play. It's really, really awkward to play. I like getting the clay early on is rough, and like the effect is so minimal. I like Junk Room a lot. I think Junk Room is like if you can play it pretty cheaply, it can be worth like 5, 6, 7 food, but that's not very good for a minor improvement. I think this is like pretty solidly a D tier card. It's somewhere around here. Like, it's probably slightly better than Brook because you can play it a little bit more frequently. It's probably slightly worse than Clay Pipe. Clay Pipe's probably a little bit more food on average, but like, it does come at a good time. When you're Junk Room, the food comes at a very good time, right? Like, when you're family growing, when you start playing, those are like times where you're doing it for family growth, and you probably need some food. So it comes at a pretty good time, like, which makes it maybe a little bit better than Clay Pipe, but it's like around there somewhere. Maybe it's better than Drinking Trough as well. Yeah, it's like somewhere around here. I mean, it's like fine if you can play it, but like a lot of times playing it's just really hard to do. So next we have Lantern House. Lantern House is a card that is just like really good. In higher draft formats, this card's completely insane. In like draft 9, draft 10, this card's nuts. In draft 7, this card's not quite as good. Also, depending on your positioning at the table, like if you're going like second, it's very justifiable to go 3 wood into starting player because you were second anyways, you get that extra food. If you're first, Lantern House is not very good. If you're fourth, it's not very good because it's not very likely you're going to get to play it in round 1, but it could happen. Like going fourth, it's not a bad plan to the Lantern House either. Like it's mainly bad if you're the first player in the game because the first player in the game, you really have a chance to get a lot of things going. You can awk, you have a lot of freedom of what you're doing. You get a good wheel no matter what. So you don't really want to go 3 wood into start player when you're a food down. But I find this card's very good at securing start player early on in the game. And like you don't necessarily have to play it either. Like if you do play it, it's quite good. It's probably going to get you, in an average game where you're playing lots of cards, it's probably going to get you like, 4 points pretty easily. And in games where you have like Begging Student or something like that, it's going to get you more. In games where you have Tutor, it's going to get you more. But I think it's like pretty easily 3 to 4 points, which is good. Like it's comparable to Dwelling Mound, but it's a lot easier to get out. It has a lot higher of a point ceiling, and like it's very good. This card, I think, is a B tier card. I think on average, this card, the tempo that you lose by playing this card is pretty massive. Like it's not worth understating. And afterwards, you have to play a bunch of your other cards, which puts you behind on like building and stuff like that. It's still clearly a B tier card. I think it's not quite an A tier card. I'd rather have the Horse-Drawn Boat than have a Lantern House. I think, or yeah, I think it's Horse-Drawn Boat's a little bit better. But it's like here. It's like the top of B tier. I think it's very good. Like it's like Forenade. Like when you can play it and it's good, it's a total monster of a card. It combos with a lot of things, but like there are games where you're not always going to get to play this, or like you have to kill too much of your game to play it because like the miner's not going to line up well. You want to play Ox, and then you can't play Ox because you want to play this, and then it's bad. So yeah, I think it's around there. All right, large greenhouse. So one big change from the base set to this set is that veggie strats are real. There's a lot more cards. There's like Carrot Museum, there's Schnapps Distillery, There's a lot of cards that can utilize veggies. And for that reason, it's a little bit higher up. I'm never unhappy to play a large greenhouse. Like getting veggies for free off of future actions is pretty good. A lot of times the wood cost is pretty awkward, but like it's pretty good. It's not bad at all. I think that looking at all these cards, it's somewhere in the C tier. It's somewhere. I like it better than Granary. I like it better than a lot of these cards. It's somewhere around here. It's somewhere around there for me. It's like pretty good. Yeah, looking at this, I might move Half Timbered House down a little bit. I might move it into C tier. There are a lot of games where Half Timbered House is pretty bad. So I might move Half Timbered House down to the C tier. Yeah, like, I don't know. I mean, large greenhouse is good. Large greenhouse I'd rather have than on average than hard porcelain. I think on average it's like slightly, but on average hard porcelain could be nuts though. I don't know. It's something like this. Like on average, large greenhouse is fine, but like hard porcelain has a higher ceiling, so maybe on average hard porcelain's better. I don't know. We'll keep adjusting later on. Lasso, every once in a while, Lasso is like insane. Every once in a while, Lasso is completely nuts, where like animals are in a lot of pressure. Getting the animals is like getting animal pairs as a move with your other good actions in like the later rounds is completely insane. That being said, I think people play Lasso a little bit too aggressively sometimes. Sometimes you play Lasso and you just blow a read for no reason. But that being said, it's still quite good. I'm never unhappy to have it in my hand. It's definitely a C tier card. It's definitely a card that like has a very low floor. Burning a read on this and having it do nothing is brutal. But on the other hand, or like, you know, you're taking animals that you don't really want. But burning a read on this and having it be good is like quite good. It's like around this large greenhouse zone. I think probably it's around here. Yeah, it's somewhere around here, I think. I think it's like good but not great, and like the it has a very low floor. If you play this like and don't use it or like use it wrongly, it can be very bad for your game. It can be very, very bad. Next we have Lettuce Patch. Lettuce Patch is completely insane. Lettuce Patch is so stupidly good. Lettuce Patch, I definitely put in the A tier. It is like a premium card. It gives you a natural feeding engine and a natural thing to do with veggies. Like, taking one veggie and sowing it on this is completely insane. It, like, I mentioned that, like, Beanfield is so good because it gives you something to sow veggies on. This card is free, and it converts those veggies into 4 food, which is better than a cooking hearth. So, like, it gives you a feeding engine by itself. I very frequently use this card to bail myself out of games. It's worth a point. It allows you to sow your veggies, which then you can resow later. So, like, it allows you to get points if you need it. Like, this card is so good. I actually think it's in the A tier. I think this card's better than Carrot Museum on average. I think it is, on average, better than Bookcase Bookshelf. I don't know if on average is better than Clay Supports, but it's really, really, really close. This card has been a total monster in the games that I played with it. It is really, really good. Just on average. It's somewhere around here. It's somewhere around this area. I don't know about Carpenter's Parlor or Clay Supports like this card, like Lettuce Patch, where I value things, but it's very close between those three. And like Bookshelf too. Bookshelf also quite good. In higher draft formats, like probably I'd value Bookshelf a little bit higher, but yeah, all these cards are really, really good. They're all very close there. I'll resort these later. Now we have Loam Pit. Loam Pit is a card that the floor on this card is a food for a bonus point, which is fine. Because if you don't have any other day labor stuff, this card sucks. Like straight up, this card is just bad. If you have day labor stuff, this card is completely insane. This card is very, very good. For that reason, I definitely put this card in the B tier. This card's definitely in the B tier here. I think that I would rather have this card than like a lot of these B tier cards. Like it's somewhere around here, I think. It's so good when it's good, and at worst, it's a food for a point. Sometimes you're like, man, I really wish I had this card for the clay in the early games. You don't want to play Ox, but like with the day labor there's so many good day labor combos with it that just make it a total monster. Granted, it's not going to be good every game. It's not going to be good every game. There are a lot of games where it's not going to be great, but like if it is good, it's so good. I think around here is good. I think on average, is it better than Feed Pellets on average? It's probably better than Feed Pellets on average. Feed Pellets is so good. Yeah, it is also dangerous to pass. I agree with that. I totally agree with that. It's somewhere around here. Like when it's bad, it's very bad. But like when it's good, it's good. It's somewhere around there. I'll figure it out later. We'll figure out the sorting later. Next we have Loom. Loom is really nuts. Loom is so good. Loom is another card that just like it gives you food, it gives you points. It's very good. It's a really good card. I think Loom is it's better than Bookcase. I don't think it's better than Bookshelf. It's definitely not better than Lettuce Patch. It's definitely not better than Lettuce Patch. It's definitely not better than the building cards. Definitely not better than Big Country. But I think it's like it's in that region. I mean, it's very good. Like the problem with Loom is that sometimes you just don't get cheap early on, and I don't think that like not getting cheap is like pretty big bummer. But on average, it's so good. I think on average, it's better than Bookcase. Bookcase can have some awkward tempo issues. It can be a little awkward to get the veggies off of it. I think on average, Loom is just a little bit better. I think I rate Loom about there. It's so good. It does everything. It gives you points. It gives you food. It like gives you all the things. I think on average is better. We have Lumber Mill. Lumber Mill's good. I'm never unhappy to have Lumber Mill. Lumber Mill has a lot of really nice combos with it. I think that Lumber Mill is good. I think Lumber Mill is fine. I mean, Lumber Mill is a B tier card. I think Lumber Mill is very good. It increases your point ceiling. It allows you to play other cards that have wood in the cost. Like, it makes all your miners free, basically. There's a ton of one wood miners. It makes those all free. It's very good. I mean, a lot of times it can be just really awkward to get 2 stone early on, but a lot of the times it's really good. I mean, it's probably like around... It's probably around here. I think it's better than Hutch. It's better than Blueprints, but it's worse than Clay Supply, worse than Lone Pit on average, I think. So I'll probably put it around there. All right, what do we have next? Now the stuff is off the screen, so it's fine. All right, Manger is points for the... Like, Manger is only a card you play with Big Country ever. Like, Manger is like a trap card to play without Big Country. That being said, when you do play it with Big Country... It's fine. Like, it's good. It gives you a lot of points of Big Country. If you're fencing big, it's very good. But without Big Country, I very rarely find it worth playing. I think it's clearly a D tier card. I think it's probably better than most of the D tier on average. But this is one of the problems with Big Country is Manger, like, only is good with... it's, like, only good with Big Country. And, yeah, maybe with Shepherd's Crook, too. Like, it's maybe only... Like, it's okay with Shepherd's Crook. But, like, it's not really a card you ever, like, want to draft highly. It's very rare that it's fine. So, yeah, like, Manger is whatever. Yeah, Stonecutter Lumber Mill is good. Yeah, Lumber Mill definitely has issues getting out, right? But if you do get out, it's quite good. But yeah, I think Manger is like top of D tier for me. I don't really see a good way that it's not top of D tier. Yeah, somewhere around there is fine. I'll move these around later on. All right, what do we have next? Next, we have Mantelpiece. Mantelpiece, it is a card that really incentivizes you to Reno to Clay or to Stone early on. Mantelpiece is not a great card. I've come down a lot on Mantelpiece, but it can be quite good. Like, Renoing to Stone early on is definitely a strategy that there's a good amount of support for. There's also a lot of support for, like, Renoing to Clay. If you play Mantelpiece after Renoing to Clay on turn 3 with a Cottager, it's really brutal. It's really good. It's so many points. It, like, typically when you're cottagering with, like, Mantelpiece, it's very good. That being said, a lot of the time playing Mantelpiece is like a mistake. Like if you are trying to accelerate your Mantelpiece out by taking natural Reno actions, it's typically only going to be worth like a couple points, and by that point you have to waste a stone on it, which is typically coming, and typically you have to waste your major improvement action on it as well. Like, a lot of times this card is a trap to play. That being said, there are times when this card really increases your point ceiling when you're Renoing to Stone fast. It can be quite good when that happens, but, like, it gets stuck in your hand a lot of the time. I think that this card is like a C tier card. It's fine. There are some games where I'm very happy to have this, but most of the time I really don't want this card in my hand. I think most of the time this card is not great. It's like somewhere around here. The problem is that on average, like, I have to average this card out. At its best, this card is, like, better than some of the cards in B tier, but most of the time it is like a D tier card. So I think on average it makes it a C tier card, and I think I put it about there. But there's a lot of variance on Mantelpiece. Mantelpiece has so many, it's like such high variance card. Yeah, the -3 for Constable is fair too. I mean, I don't really run into Constables. I haven't seen Constable with Mantelpiece that often because someone has to actually play Constable and have the Constable points lined up, which is not a huge deal in this set, but, like, that's also a concern too. I think on average it's about there. I think that, like, there are some games where it's very strong. Most of the time it's not very strong, and most of the time you probably shouldn't draft this card, but when it is strong, it's very strong. Next, we have Market Stall. Market Stall, very clear D tier card. This card is only playable if you have... Where'd the Market Stall go? Hello? Oh, it's, like, right here. Market Stall is only playable if you have a lot of grain and you have not really good way to get veggies. So, like, with Field Watchman, it's very playable. It's playable sometimes if you're sowing a million grain. Like, but most of the time, it's really bad to play. You don't want to plan on playing this. I think it's, like, down here with like, all this stuff here. It's really bad. It's really, really not good. I think it's a slightly better than... Actually, I think it's worse than Dutch Windmill. I actually think it's worse than Dutch Windmill. I think I play Dutch Windmill more frequently than I play Market Stall. Maybe Bottles I should move up a little bit. Maybe Bottles is a little bit better than Dutch Windmill on average. But not by much. Yeah. Yeah, I very seldom play Bottles, but maybe I play it a little bit more frequently than Dutch Windmill. I don't play them that frequently at all, so... Yeah, Market Stall just doesn't do much. It's down here. I think it's worse than Dutch Windmill, actually. Next we have Milk Jug. God, Milk Jug is so good. Milk Jug is a disgusting amount of food. It's such a stupid amount of food. It can be 15 food. If cattle flips in round 10 and you have this in play, it can frequently be 15 food for a clay for you, which is completely dumb. If at worst it's like 9 food most of the time, it does give other people food, but like, and people are pretty happy about that. Like, I'm never unhappy when someone milk jugs because typically I'm just like, okay, I can use the extra food here and there, and it's very good. But like, man, milk jug is such a monster of a card. It gives you such high food. You can typically feed with just milk jug and like the well and like maybe a guild if you have 3 family members. Like, it feeds you completely. It's so insane. I'm definitely putting it. Sorry, I'm just moving it up here for now because I have to move it a lot. I actually think this card is like bottom of A tier. I actually am so high on this card. On average, it's so stupid. Like, it gives you so much food. I mean, paying a clay for like 12 food is so nuts. It's so insane. It's like so efficient. I don't think it's like giving other people food is a problem. Having to play it can be a little bit of an issue. One clay is a little bit awkward, but man, it's so much food. There's so many games where this card is just like completely like steamrolls because you just get so much food from it. I think it's better than Lantern House on average. Like, granted, when like what I have to reiterate, right, that like I am trying to take the average value of these cards and put it in a tier list. There are going to be a lot of times where I pick Lantern House or Forenade over this. A lot of times, because like if you have a big house, you probably want Forenade for early food. If you're playing a lot of Oxen Miners and you're in good position, you probably want to play Lantern House. But like, that being said, I think on average this card is just a monster. I think I put it in the A tier. All right. Next we have Milking Place. What a sad nerf this card got. All you do is add a grain cost this card, and this card is like total trash. This card can be playable sometimes. There's times where you can play Milking Place, but once again you have to have a lot of grain. Reducing the animal space is huge. There are a lot of cards in this set that actually want you to have room, like room in your house for animals. Like, there are a lot of cards like that in this draft, and like, it is brutal to pay a grain for this early on. There's so few times where I want to play this. It's definitely a D tier card. I mean, the effect is good. I will say the effect is quite good. Getting a food every harvest is good, but playing this early typically is a mistake. It's just typically a mistake to play this early. It can be a way to turn a grain to a point that can be quite good, but like, on average this card is bad. On average you shouldn't be playing this card, but like, there are games where it's good. I think that I put this card in the D tier for sure. I guess that on average is probably better than Dwelling Mound. I don't think on average is better than Brook, though. Yeah, I don't think on average is better than Brook. Like, there are some games where you play it and it's fine, but I don't think on average is better than Brook. I can't justify that. But on average, it's probably better than Dwelling Mound. It's probably better than Herring Pot. So I'll put it there. Milking Stool. The superior milking card, it is so good. Milking Stool is so good. It's not as good as Loom. It's not quite as good as Loom. I'm just going to take a scroll up, look at the A tier really quick. It's not as good as Loom. It is harder. It's way harder to get cows, and it doesn't have a point attached to it. It also, it doesn't give you a point. It's easier to get a lot of it's not easier to get points off it than Loom. Like, it's just a worse Loom, but Loom is so good that like, this card's still insane. There are some cards that give you cows like throughout the game, and like with those cards, like with the cattle deliveryman, cattle dealer, I don't remember what that card's called. There's a couple of cards that give you cows that make this card like really, really good. But yeah, it gives you points and food. It's very strong. This card also is like bottom of A tier. I think that it is better than Milk Jug very slightly because of the points that it gives you, because increasing your point ceiling is quite good, but not by too much. It's quite strong. I think it's also probably better than this card too. Yeah, it's better than this card too, I think. It's better than alternating sheep and food, because this card gives you food and points. I think it's quite good. I don't think it's better than Field Fences, though. I don't think it's better than Field Fences. Let me reevaluate Carrot Museum. How do I feel about Carrot Museum relative to Milking Stool? The problem is that the ceiling in Carrot Museum is so high. Like, the floor is low, but the ceiling is super high. So I think about there is right. Yeah, about there is right. What do we got next? Mini Pasture is good. Mini Pasture is like perfect example of a B tier card. Like it's a card that like is not completely overpowered. It can add a lot of fences to the game. It can add a lot of wood when you don't want to add wood. But like typically it's really good. Having a pasture for 2 food is really nuts. It can allow you to do some things. The only downside is that you have to pass it, which is not great. But yeah, this card I'm never unhappy to have in my hand. I probably put it in the B tier like around Beanfield. Something like that. This tier list is getting quite big. Somewhere around here. Probably is better than Hand Plow. Beanfield is probably like very slightly better. Yeah, it's somewhere around here. I think this is good. Main Pasture is a good card. It's a like good solid B tier card. You're always happy playing it. It's always quite nice to have. The problem is that you have to pass it, which is not great. Mining Hammer is really good. It's a really good card. The cost on this card is so low. It gives you a food for some reason, which makes it immediately good, and then it gives you a couple stables. Like paying a wood for 2 stables and a food is very good. And like typically it will always be a stable and a food for only you. It's not even a pass card like the stable card is. I don't think this card is quite A tier. I think it's like a top of B tier card, but it's a card that I'm like never unhappy to have. Yeah, probably it's like top of B tier. I don't think it's quite A tier, but it's very good. It's a very good card. Probably I put it like, I think on average is probably better than Lantern House, but like Lantern House is higher upside, so but like on average Mining Hammer is going to be way better. Like you're going to end up playing it early. It's going to typically be a stable when you want it, or maybe 2 stables. It's a food. Like it's so good. What a good card. Always happy to have it. Next, we had Moldbird Plow. Moldbird Plow, quite good. One thing the CD deck added, it added a lot of plow support. This was one of the plows from the original deck. That being said, it was a very good card. You pick it very highly. It's still a very good card. I will put this in A tier. I think this is clearly an A tier card. I might have to add an S tier, actually. Looking at now, like some of the cards in A tier are a little bit worse than S tier. I put in the A tier. I think that like it allows you to plow so many fields very efficiently. It only costs 2 wood. It only has a 1 aqu requirement. I'm putting in the A tier. I don't know where in the A tier though. I think that it's better than. I think it's worse than Field Fences. It's worse than Milking Stool. Very similar between this and Milking Stool. It's definitely better than Cow card. It's definitely better than Alternating Sheep and Food card. I don't know if it's as good as Milking Stool, but it's very close. Yeah, I mean, it really, which order you pick them in depends on your game, but I think about there is fine. That's about where I put it. Muckrake. Muckrake is a very fun card to play with. It has a lot of upside. Like sometimes there are a lot of cards that allow you to build stables, and so like sometimes you just want to unfence your stables so that way you get more animal space. It also combos really nicely with Stable Architect. They both tend to go pretty late. That being said, it's a pretty situational card. I think I put it like in somewhere in the C tier. I think that like quite frequently it's pretty easy to make this a lot of points. Like it's pretty easy to make this a 1 to 2 point card, which is pretty good for a minor. So I'm pretty high. I'm like higher on this. I definitely put it in the C tier, but where in the C tier do I put it? It's like around here. It's around this section. Like these cards are all a little bit mopey. It's kind of in the mopey-ish section. Yeah, like it's somewhere around here. I think I'd rather have it than Feed Fences, but probably Bread Paddle is a little bit better than average. It's somewhere around there. I have to rearrange some things for sure. Pitchfork, I think Pitchfork is like close to unplayable. It's so rare. Like it is very rare that it's going to give you more than 3 food in a game. And like if it does, you're probably taking grain a little bit too often. It's not a combo with like any other grain seeds card because like you really don't want to be taking grain like that frequently. You're never going to take grain after plow has been taken. Like it doesn't combo with Field Watchman. It doesn't combo with anything like that. I think this is pretty low. I think this is worse than Dutch Windmill for me. It's like worse than Dutch Windmill. I think it's like it's worse than Market Stall too. I think I played Market Stall more than I played this card. I might have played Basket before I played this, but more than I played this card. I think I played this card less than Basket, so I'll put it below Basket. I think this card's really bad. It's really really bad. I don't think it's like unplayable, but it's very bad. I think it's a waste of a wood. I honestly think Basket has more playability than this card, which might be a controversial take, but whatever. Pond Hut. Pond Hut got a little bit of a nerf. Pond Hut, from what it originally was, it's still quite good. When you can play it, it's a wood for 3, food and a point. That's super good. It's really, really good. The problem is that it's very awkward to play around. I think it's a very clear example of a B tier card. I just don't know where in the B tier it goes. It seems like it's like around here. It's like a little bit worse than Clay Supply, but maybe a little bit better than Lumber Mill. Somewhere around there is where I have it. I think it's like somewhere in that ballpark. Hopefully I'm not hiding anything. Pyre Ceramics. Pyre Ceramics is a card that allows you to feed so easily. There are like every oven gives you a bake bread action, so basically it turns an oven into pay grain 5 food. It combos with a lot of the bake bread cards. It has a lot of really nice combos. It's free for some reason, so you don't have to pay anything for it. You can just play it on Start Player whenever you feel like it. I think for that reason, it's very clearly an A tier card. I think it's better than anything in B tier. It probably is better than a lot of the things in A tier. Like, it's probably better than Feed Fences and like it is a card that, like, when you build around it, it gives you a ton of food. I definitely put it in the A tier. I think it's very strong. I don't get to draft this very much because people like to draft this card very highly. For good reason, it's very good, but it seems very good. I think just below Bookshelf, I agree with that. I think it's better than Carrot Museum on average because, like, the cost is so low to playing it. And, like, very frequently you can just, like, you know, turn grain into food. Like, even if you're so baking later on and you have a cooking hearth, you can just turn a clay into 2 food or 3 food. Like, it's really nice. I mean, it's like, it's so good. And then add a ceiling, you can just build around it, and it's just like a total monster. Carrot Museum might be slightly better than this, actually. The ceiling on Carrot Museum is so stupidly high. But Pyre Ceramics has such a high floor, too. And we'll put Pyre Ceramics up with Carrot Museum. But yeah, Bookshelf is really good. I think Bookshelf might be slightly better, but yeah, it's somewhere around there. It's a very good card. Yeah, it's very good. Private Forest. Private Forest is a card that is frequently a trap. Paying 2 food on your first turn of the game. Typically what will happen is that if you are the first player, you're going Auk into Private Forest, then you'll have no food in your supply. You're going to be very food starved. If you're the second player and you have to go 1 food Auk into Private Forest, you're going to be very food starved because you have no food in your supply. So, like, playing this card puts you in a really bad spot food-wise very early on in the game. That being said, you can actually play this card, like, a little bit later and have it be good too. If you get like 3 or 4 wood off of this card, it's pretty good. Paying 2 food for 3 to 4 wood is quite good most of the time. I think that people sleep on this card, but I think people use it too aggressively and then put themselves in a bad food spot. And when that happens, this card is not going to be good. If you put yourself in a bad food spot and have no plan to get out of it, it's going to be really bad. But if you put yourself in a good food spot and then play this card and are turning that food into wood, it's very good when that happens. So I think this card is clearly a B tier card. Very, very clearly a B tier card. I would rather have it like, it's maybe like around Lumber Mill and Hutch. Maybe a little bit below Lumber Mill and Hutch. Maybe like around here. Like a little bit better than Blueprints, a little bit better than Half Timbered House, but a little bit worse than that. Yeah, somewhere around there is good. This is getting long. Rammed Clay. Rammed Clay, a card that allows you to fence with clay instead of wood. This card's so good. I think this card's clearly an A tier card. It's so good. Well, I mean, it makes starting player in the early game good. Like, this is the type of card you want to have if you're going 3rd or 4th in a game. Like, this was one of the only cards in the original set that, like, incentivize you taking starting player, and you have to draft it really highly if you're 4th seed because it's so good to starting player with it. It very frequently is, like, stupidly good. There's a lot of combos with this and, like, cards that give you lots of access to clay, which is easier to do than getting lots of access to wood. Like, you know, there's Clay Embankment, which lets you duplicate the clay, or, like, you know, add a lot of clay to the game. There's things like Clay Hut Builder. There's things like Loam Pit, right? There's lots of things that add clay, and it's very good with those things. I think it's clearly an A tier card. I think that it is around Milk Jug. It's very similar. It might be slightly worse than the Horse-Drawn Boat, because Horse-Drawn Boat gives you so much utility. It's somewhere around here, though. It's like clearly an A tier card. It's very good. Yeah, the 1 clay is really nice, too, that you get off of it. It's like, it's a very good card. It's very, very, very nice. It's a really nice card to have. Ravenous Hunger. Ravenous Hunger is a card that seldom is playable, but when it is, it's very fun to play with. So, like, Ravenous Hunger, there's not very many justifications for it. Paying a grain and getting no points for it is awful. So when you play this card, you have to both want to take veggie actions And you have to, the main way to use this with animals, because you can use this with animals and get a pair of animals. So you can go veggie into like 3 cows or veggie into 2 cows or something like that if there's a pair of cows. And that is quite good if you can do that. If you can use this to duplicate cows, you have a lot of grain floating around, it's quite good. So this card is good with Pet Lover. With Pet Lover gives you a grain when you use it. You can use this card with Pet Lover to get 3 animals off of 1 animal spot because you can use both this and Pet Lover. That's quite good. It's good with like Field Watchman where like you probably want to be taking veggies anyways, and then later in the game you can combo your veggies into a good animal action as well. So like there are a couple of niche situations in which this card is quite nice. It is very frequently not playable. You don't ever want to pay a grain for this if you don't have insane access to grain. So for that reason, it's very clearly a D tier card. But like it's so it's somewhere in the D tier. It's above Bottles. I mean, very frequently you will not play this card. It's very infrequent you play this card. Probably Canoe on average is better. I probably put it like here. Somewhere around there in the D tier. It's not good, but when it is good, it's fun. So it's a fun card. All right, Recycled Brick. Recycled Brick is a card that can give you a lot of clay. This card is not very good. Like, when you reno to stone, you don't need clay. When someone else renos to stone, you need 5 clay to build a room. Like, you only need clay for pottery. This card is kind of... The nice thing about this card is that it only costs a food to play. So, like, sometimes you can pay a food and get some clay out of it, and it's fine. But, like, frequently it's not going to be very good. Like sometimes it can pop off, but like very frequently it's just not good at all. Like the extra clay doesn't really do anything. That being said, I would rather have it than like it's a D tier card. It's just like not great. It can be good with rammed clay sometimes, but like you also need to have people reno before you need defense, and that's hard to do. So like yeah, you need lots of clay, and like there's way better ways to generate lots of clay with this card. It can be cool to reno to stone on the Ren Fences action. You get the clay beforehand, and then you can use it with Ren Clay Defense. You can do something like that. But, like, honestly, this card's not very good. It is a D tier card. I would not pick this card very highly at all. Probably pick it above Milking Stool. That's about where I put it. But below Brook. I think Brook is a little bit better situationally. Next, oh, wait, where'd Reed had Toad go? Oh, it's in the opposite order, whatever. We'll do Reed Pond first because it's first in my slideshow. Reed Pond is a card that is fine. I'm never unhappy to play it. Taking away the point off of it is pretty huge. And like typically by the time you play it, you have your reeds sorted out a little bit. That being said, it's pretty good. I'm never unhappy to have this card in my hand. Like if you're building a lot of rooms, this card's a nice supplement to that to make sure you can build rooms in the mid game when Reed might be a little bit tighter. It gives you Reed if you have Basket Maker's Workshop. Like it's a pretty nice card. Getting 3 Ox and playing it makes it so that you can't play this immediately at all, but like it's a fine card. It's like clearly a B tier card. Where is it going to go in the B tier? Not there. I think that this card is around... Yeah, maybe it's like slightly worse than Lumbermill, slightly better than Hutch. It's somewhere around this section. I don't know exactly where, but it's somewhere around this section. Like it's the read when it comes in is kind of awkward. It's not worth a point, so typically you're just like, why is this card not doing anything else? Like it's still fine. I put it somewhere around there. Like it's a fine card. It's just not great. It's not great. The extra read, there's not really that much to do with it other than build rooms or build BMW, and like that's one of the problems is that like and there's like not many things that like add read, if that makes sense. So that means that typically like you're going to use this card to build a 4th room typically. Like that's typically how you're going to use this card, which is fine. But it's like not necessary. It can save you an action sometimes in some games. But sometimes it doesn't and you just don't end up playing it. It's really bad. Reed Hatted Toad, on the other hand, this card is insane. This card is in the land of frickin' what is it called? This card where like you can play it early on an early start player action. It gives you read for like the rest of the game. If you are if your plan is to build lots of rooms, Reed Hatted Toad is like so good. Like playing it on turn 2 is totally fine too. Like you can play it on turn 1 or turn 2. It's totally fine. It gives you read for the rest of the game to like build rooms with, to reno. If you're building BMW, it's quite good. Like I think this card is really good. But you have to have a plan to build like 4 rooms at least with it. If you're not building 4 rooms, this card is quite bad. But like I think it's better than Reed Pond because like you can play this card early on to secure an early start player. You don't have to play this card if you don't want to. Like you can play it a little bit later. You are obligated to play it early if you want the effect. But like even if you play it in round 2 or 3, you lose a read off of it. It's not that bad, and then you can use the read later on to build rooms. I think this card is quite good. The fact that you can play this so early on to secure yourself an early start player and that it gives you so much read is like super duper nice. I really like that a lot. And I value cards that incentivize taking starting early. That like getting 4 read for starting early is like so insane. I'm gonna put this at the top of B tier. I think this card I don't think is quite in the A tier of things. It's definitely in the B tier. I think that it's around. It's really good. I mean, on average, it's pretty good. I mean, if you don't play it, you don't play it. But like when you do play it, you're pretty happy playing it. It's really a good card. Yeah, it's around. I also value cards that let you start player early because like you really don't know what other people are doing in the game of Agricola, and having cards that are good that allow you to control your fate early on and not get like go last like a million turns in a row that does something proactive. I really value that highly. I think that's very good. It's better than education bonus. I think on average it's slightly worse than foreign aid, but I think on average it's better than education bonus. So I put it around there. It's really good. It's really good early on. I like it a lot. 1 food is a cost, right? You got to be careful about that, but it's fine. Sack cart is fine. I kind of like sack cart more than granary because sack cart's a little bit easier to play, and you can get more read off of it. So because it's easier to play, I like it a little bit more, which is kind of counterintuitive because granary is worth a point. It's like around the same level as granary. It does something very similar, but it gives you that like it gives you the grain at a little bit more awkward of spots. I never played this before round 5. I think playing this before round 5 is really hard. If you can play it before round 5, this card's insane. But I think that's hard to play. Maybe Granary is just a better version of this. But yeah, it's clearly a C tier card. It's clearly in C tier. I'm looking at it now. It looks like a C tier card to me. But like it's good. It's like a good solid card. Getting a little bit of extra grain's fine. It's like around Granary to me. I think it's very similar to Granary. It does a very similar thing. It's slightly easier to play. The grain comes at similar-ish times. You get a little bit less, but like it's like I think Granary is maybe a little better because of the flexibility, but it's around there. I mean, it's very similar in terms of cards. Very, very similar. Schnapps Distillery. Schnapps Distillery is a card that's very situational. Even with veggie strats, it's very hard to get the 6 veggies for this. And paying the veggie is brutal. It makes it very hard to use. You have to have an insane amount of veggies. So like it's situational, but when it's good, it's very good. But like you are very rarely playing this, but when it's good, it's good. It's a C tier card. I think it's like bottom-ish of C tier. It's like somewhere in the middle of C tier here. Like it's like in this zone of cards that like is good. Like it is very frequently unplayable. Like it's so frequently unplayable that you get stuck with it in your hand. But when you can play it, it's really good. Like I think probably it's somewhere around here. I think the cards above it are like more playable on average. Schnapps Distillery, like it will feed you if you have a lot of veggies, but that is a really big if, and like it very frequently won't work out that way. It is worth points, but like you have to turn a veggie into that too. Like eating 2 stone and a veg for 2 points is rough. You have to have so many veggies to do that, because basically you're eating 2 stone for a point and then a veggie for a point. So like you got to have a lot of veggies. I think like on average it's not good, but when it's good, it's a lot better than all the cards in C tier, and it's a lot better than the cards in B tier too. When it's good, but very frequently it will not be good. And we're doing things on averages because that's how I chose to do my metric. Scolary is quite good. The reason for this is that it is very awkward to play early on. If you can play it early on, it can give you like 7 or 8 food in the early game. Like I said, Junk Room is bad because Junk Room is only like 5 or 6 food or like throughout the game, but like Scolary is like 5, 6, 7, potentially even more food in the early game when you need the food. Like one fun thing that you can do, like there are a couple of oxen CD that give you a clay and a wood. So what you can do is that you can play one of those ox on turn 1, then play the Scolary on your turn 1, and then you get like insane amounts of food for the rest of the game. It can be quite a bit of food. That being said, you don't really want to play this past like round like 5. Like in round 5, it's a little bit sketchy. It's probably not giving you that much food, but like it could give you a lot of food still. I think this card's quite nice. I think that like you don't want to stretch to play it. Getting the resource for it can be very awkward, but there are times when you play it and it's like upwards of like, 8 or 9 food, which is completely insane because it's in the early game too. Like that's when you need the food. So I'm gonna put this in. It's around like, God, I want to put Lasso lower. Yeah, it's like around here. It's like the top of C tier, I think. I think it's like top of C tier. I think it's like good. If you can play it early, it's like such a monster. Like you have to obviously not be renoing, but I think it's around here. I want to move Lasso down. I'm moving Lasso down a lot. I think Lasso I need to move down a lot. Yeah, we're moving Lasso down. I've changed my mind about Lasso. I don't know why I put it up there in the first place. All right, next we have Sculpture. Sculpture is like only a card that you can play if you're playing Big Country. I've tried to play this card before not playing Big Country. It's so difficult to play. It's so difficult to play. Like it's really hard to justify playing. You have to do so much to your farm to do it. Like it's really hard to play if you're not playing Big Country. It's clearly a D tier card. Like it's a stone for 2 points, which is fine, but it's not great. Is Bottles better than this card? I guess Bottles is better than this card. So I guess wherever I put this card, I need to put Bottles above it. Yeah, Bottles is a little bit better than this card. I'd rather play Bottles than this card. I think it's like here. And I put Bottles here. Yeah, maybe like below Recycled Brick. Maybe like here. Dwelling Mound, I think is better than these two on average, but people don't play Dwelling Mound. It can't. So Sculpture can be a backup plan when you get Reno Stone Block, but only if you have a complete farm, and you can't play it on the last turn of the game because you can. If there are 0 rounds left to play, then there can't be fewer than 0 rounds left to you can't have 0 unused farmyard spaces and then you can't play it on the last round of the game. So like it's very unlikely to happen. I honestly think I'd rather have Dwelling Mound than Sculpture too. I'd rather have Dwelling Mound than either. Like, maybe Bottles is a little bit better than Dwelling Mound. I don't know. These are all about the same. We'll put it here. Maybe I'm sleeping on. Well, we'll move some stuff around later. But yeah, it's Sculpture is like around the level of Bottles, I think, and I think Sculpture is like around there. So yeah, we'll move things around there. Sheepwell, I love Sheepwell a lot. Sheepwell is so good. It's like it increases your point cap right because at worst it's 2 stone for 2 points. Sometimes you're playing sheep strats and then you can get some points off of it. That being said, this isn't a card I'd pick super highly, but like I'm never unhappy to have this. It's always pretty fine. It increases your point ceiling and that's always good. I think this is like maybe I'm moving Half Timbered House down a little bit. I think this is like a bottom of B tier card. Yeah, I think it's better than Clay card. I think it's like around here. Maybe it's better. It's better than Blueprint, I think. I think it's better than this. I think it's a little bit worse than Hutch. Yeah, somewhere around there is good. Yeah, I'll go through the Ox too. Yeah, why not? Not in the same video. That'll be the next video. So, but yeah, it'll be later on. All right. Shepherd's Crook. Shepherd's Crook is okay. I don't like Shepherd's Crook very much. I think Shepherd's Crook is not very good. When you can use it, it's good. But the problem is that I don't really like fencing this many pastures. Like, it's not great. It's like not too great. We're almost there. We're getting close. Yeah, it's not Shepherd's Crook. Not like super great. It's like okay. It's a card that's like bottom of C tier. I think it's like okay. Like I'm not super unhappy to have it. Like it has fringe use, but then like very frequently I just never want to use it for fences. Like it's okay to use it sometimes, but like it's not great. I'll put it somewhere maybe below the Shop Distillery. It's around this level of these things. I mean, well, yeah, so you shouldn't use it for 4 sheep ever. It can be used for 2 sheep sometimes, but you have to fence in a kind of weird, awkward way to do it. Like, if you get 2 sheep off it, obviously this card's very, very good. Probably it's better, but like very frequently I find that I just don't want to fence twice. And you typically have to fence twice to use this card. Like, fencing 12 is like okay. That's probably the best use for it. I mean, maybe it's better than I'm giving it credit for. Yeah, if your plan's to fence 8, it's good. Maybe it's a little bit better than these cards. I'll move some stuff around later on. For now, I know it's in that tier. I'll worry about the details later. Shifting Cultivation, this card's quite good. Typically, plows are very contested in the later parts of the game. It's always nice to be able to plow fields. I definitely put this in the B tier. I'm always very happy to have this card. I don't know how high in the B tier I put it. It's definitely worse than Mini Pasture. It's like worse than Loam Pit on average. It's probably better than Pontud on average. It's somewhere around there, I think. It's like good, but it's not a great card. I'm always happy to have it. Never bad to plow fields. Sleeping Corner. Sleeping Corner is a card that is like such an out to getting destroyed in the family growth queue. A lot of the times this card is really awkward to play. There's some strategies that you can play that Sleeping Corner is like totally fine. It is always a get out of jail free card for family growth queue stuff. If you're on 3 or 2 rooms, this card is insane. It's just very good. I think this is clearly an A tier card. It's quite good. I think that like on average, this card's not amazing. On average, it's fine. It's probably better than all these cards here. I don't know if it's better than Milking Stool on average. Like, it probably is. Yeah, it's like somewhere around here. It's better than Milking Stool on average. It's if you can play it, which you typically can line up to play it before Family Growth Out Room flips, it's very good. It's really, really good. Field Fences might be slightly better just because it's like so good tempo wise, but and everything else above it I think is slightly better, but I think it's pretty good. I think it's pretty good. Yeah, getting the grain fields can be really hard sometimes. And sometimes you have to like kill the rest of your game in order to get the grain fields up, and it's not worth it. And you can also get so blocked too, which can hurt a lot. So like if that happens, it's really nasty. So there are fewer Ox than Miners improvements. So that's a thing that's going to help us, I believe. Small greenhouse. This is like greenhouse, large greenhouse, but it costs you a food to get the veggies, and it's worth a point. This card is a lot worse, actually. It's a lot worse than large greenhouse. The point is not worth having to pay food for the veggies. Paying food for the veggies is rough because, like, typically you're using the veggies to sow, and like that becomes your food source. And so paying the food for the food source is pretty rough here. It is worth a point, but I think this card's like significantly worse than large greenhouse. I'm putting it in C tier still. It's still like fine to get veggies. At minimum, it's 2 wood for a point that allows you to convert food into veggies, which is fine, but it's not great. I think that honestly, it's like every time I look at Lasso, I want to continue moving it down. I think it's like worse than Fishing Net, but better than Lasso. It's somewhere around there. We'll maneuver stuff around in a little bit. Next, we have Stable. Stable's fine. The floor is high, but the floor is fine, but the ceiling is also low. I mean, one stable is whatever. This is clearly a C tier card. It's like totally fine. I would not draft this highly at all. I think it is slightly better than Farm Store, but not better than Chicken Coop. That's about where I have it. Yeah, it can also be good Constable insurance, which I think Constable is a little bit overstated. I very rarely see Constable being played, so it's kind of hard to hit for some reason. Steam Machine. Steam Machine is a cute card. It can combo with a lot of the baked bread cards, but typically it gives you way too many baked breads. Like the only good combo with it like I think is Potter Ceramics. I think that like with Field Watchman it gives you too many baked breads. Like it can be kind of cute with that, but like I don't think this card's very good. I think this is clearly a D tier card. It's not great. I would put it in the D tier. It's worth a point. I think it's like around here. I think it's around there. I think I'd rather have Brook most of the time, like, than this card. I really don't want to play this at all, like, ever. Like, it is sometimes very good, and sometimes 2 wood for a point in a bake action, which can be nice, but, like, I'd rather have Brook. Brook is, like, situationally better, so. Next, we have Stone Cart. I am pretty high on Stone Cart. I think that there are a lot of good uses for stone in this set. Like, tons of good uses for stone. Renoing to stone can sometimes be rough if people are taking a lot of stone. There's not a lot of things that add stone other than, like, Roof Baluster. There's not a lot of ways that add stone. Like, Stone Tongs is coming up and, like, a couple of other stone cards, but they're not as good as a Stone Cart, I think, in adding stone. I like Stone Cart a lot. I think that, like, having a couple extra stone is good. I think that this is clearly a C tier card. It's probably like a top of C tier card for me. I'm pretty high on this. I think that this card is pretty nice in general. I like having a little bit of extra stone floating around. It's really nice for renovating, making sure that you have that. You can build mages with it later on, which is nice. It can really give you good tempo. Paying 2 wood for it, a little bit awkward, but like if you can get like 5 or 6 stone off this, which is doable, it's a total monster of a card. I think probably on average, it's very similar to Mantelpiece. It's definitely worse than Butter Churn. But yeah, it's like around here. It's around this section of Mantelpiece. It's probably better than Mantelpiece. I probably have to move some things around at the end, so we'll do it here for now. Stone clearing is only, like, it is very good when it's good. When this card is good, it just gets you 5 stone for a food. But like a lot of times you have to have unsown fields, which is hard to do. Like you have to plan around this card, but like when this card's good, it's good. I think it's a C tier card. I think that it's like situationally good, but like when it's good, it's fine. It gives you a good amount of stone. If you line it up really well, you can get a lot of stone. If you line up with the plows, you get a ton of stone with it, which is nice. But most of the time, you're not going to end up wanting to play this. It also passes, which can be kind of annoying. It can add a scary amount of stone to the game. I think this card it's pretty similar to Stone Card, actually. It's like a little bit worse than Stone Card, but not by too much. Not by like a surprising amount. I think I put it like... yeah, Hard Porcelain's very similar to... I think Hard Porcelain's better on average. I think that like there are a lot of games where you get a lot of clay that's good. I think it's worse than Scullery. I think it's worse than Greenhouse. I think it's probably worse than Flail. It's probably worse than the grain cards. Worse than a lot of stuff, actually. Yeah, it's better than Small Greenhouse. That's where I'm putting it. It's better than Small Greenhouse here. Yeah, it can be a combo. If you have a lot of plows, it's good, but like typically, like you don't want to leave your fields empty for very long. Like it can combo. It has combos that are very good with it, but like it's a little bit rare to set up, I think. Stone Tongs I very much dislike. Taking stone actions is rare. You don't really want to take stone actions when they're on low stone. It's very seldom that you take more than 2 stone actions. So like this is a wood for a stone most of the time, which is not good. And like sometimes a wood for 2 stone. I think that there are situations where it's okay. Like, I put this at the bottom of C tier somewhere. I think it's, like, better than Muckrake, but not by that much. Yeah, it's, like, about there. It's about there, I think. Next, we have one of my favorite cards, Stork's Nest. So, Stork's Nest is a card that you will not play it every game. But if you do play it early, it will win you the game immediately. If you draft around this card and you're able to play this game like early, like I've had games where I play this in round 6 or 7 and then grow like 2 or 3 times in a row, like immediately off of it, you will almost always immediately win the game from that point onwards. It's very hard. Like the problem though is that like you have to have an Ox strategy that plays a lot of Ox early on. So you have to have like bookcase, bookshelf, writing desk, something along those lines. You have to have good food setup to be able to grow. You have to have a lot of things going for you. You have to have good ability to build rooms. But if you have all those things, Stork's Nest just skips the family growth queue entirely. It does add a lot of actions to the game because your opponents get to add a lot of actions, and you don't get to play minors with it, but it's really insane when you do get to play it. I have broken 60 with this card multiple times. It is completely insane when you do get to play with it, and it's good. I have also played with this card when my Ox strategy doesn't go as I plan to, and it's not as good, but I think I win very frequently when I play Stork's Nest. Very frequently when I play Stork's Nest, I win, or get a very high score at least. It's really, really good. Sometimes you don't end up playing with it because you get natural spots in the growth queue and you'd rather play minors, but like when growth flips late and you have a big house strategy, it can be very good, but you have to line it up. It's very hard to play with. That being said, overall, it's a B tier card. The floor on this card is low. I mean, a lot of times you won't have a draft to play this card, but when you play it, it will outright win you the game. Sometimes when you play this card, it will outright win you the game, and it can lead to the most ridiculous scores. So the ceiling's very high. The floor is that you don't play it, which is very bad. I think that on average, it's somewhere in this region of cards. It's definitely worse than Mining Hammer. It's probably worse than Lantern House on average. On average, it might be better than Fornade. It's like in a similar spot of Fornade. I think it's better than Toad on average because, I mean, this is a card where like it's either like the best card in the game or it is not a card that you're going to be playing with at all. And so it's hard to rank based on that. But like I think I'm going to put it in the top of B tier. I think that you shouldn't sleep on this card. When you see it, you should always be thinking about like, do I have a draft where I can play this card? You should not be you should maybe think about taking this card to hate it even from people who you think you passed a lot of like, you know, bookshelf, bookcase, writing desk things to that might be able to play this. Although it might help you out too, because if you're building a bunch of rooms, then they add a lot of family growth, and that can be good for you. So like, but like you should not be taking this card unless you have a very specific plan with it. When you do have that plan, it's completely insane. Strawberry Patch. I like Strawberry Patch a lot. I never play this for food ever. Like almost always it's just a wood for 2 bonus points, which is fine. It's kind of awkward to set up. I think it increases your point cap by quite a bit. It's like in the sheeple category of like bottom of B tier. Like it's good points, it's good stuff, but like we flipped it in Straw Thatch Roof. That's fine. Yeah, it's like fine. It's like bottom of B tier. I think I'd rather have it than a Blueprint. But it's like close between this and Private Forest. Like I think it's probably worse than Private Forest. It's really situational. Like it's kind of hard to set up, but like typically you can sow 2 veggies on fields pretty easily and just get 2 points off of it. That's pretty good. It's hard to get the food off of. Like Sheepball is a little bit better in that regard, but it is a wood for points though, which is nice. So there's that. Straw Thatch Roof. Straw Thatch Roof is a card that, like, the highs on this card are very high. When you have a Field Watchman, obviously this card's insane. When you're able to sow grain and build rooms with this, it's insane. A lot of times, though, you end up setting up for it in a really inefficient way, and then you don't have access to wood. So, like, it's very hard to set this card up and have it be, like, insane. But, like, if you can set this card up, it's good. It's kind of in this Stork's Nest realm of, like, the highs on this card are very high. Not as high as Stork's Nest, but, like, the lows on this card are really low. It can very frequently get stuck in your hand. It's very frequent that you just don't end up playing it because you just end up taking read naturally. It is worth a point that's nice, but like it's somewhere it's in the B tier. It's a quite good card. There are a lot of good situations in which you can play it. Typically it's with Field Watchman, but there are other situations too. But the highs are very high with this card. I honestly think there are a lot of miners in this tier though that I would rather have. Like I would probably, like most of the time I think Main Pasture is going to be better. Most of the time Handy Plow is going to be better, but like because like typically you can't get this card up until like round like 6 or 7 most of the time. Like it's very hard to get up before then, and by then you probably have already built a room. It can be good with the other building cards as well to build a lot of rooms later on, but like I think on average this card is worse than Loam Pit. Actually, I think on average this card is worse than Loam Pit. So I think I'm going to leave it a little bit lower in the tier. On average, it's better than Shifting Cultivation. It's probably better than this. Yeah, on average, it's a little bit worse than Loam Pit. So I'll leave it there. I think that's a good place for it. Supply Boat. Supply Boat is a card that is typically a wood for a bonus point. Typically it's a wood for a bonus point, which is like fine. Like once again, fishing combos suck. Like there's not really any good reasons to use fishing. Like sometimes it like typically you use fishing with it once and get a grain. So like it's a wood for like a point and like a grain, or maybe sometimes a veggie, which is fine. It's like a C tier card. It's like okay, but it's not great. It is a point, which is nice, which it probably makes it higher than like Corn Scoop. I think it's a little bit better than Corn Scoop because of that. It's probably a little worse than Farm Store. Yeah, I'll put it somewhere around here. Somewhere around here seems good. I am overrating large or small greenhouse a little bit. But yeah, it's somewhere around there. Swing Plow. Swing Plow is a plow that lets you plow twice, 3 fields twice on the regular plow spot. The wood is kind of insane on it, but obviously plow support cards are just like very good in general. This is clearly a B tier card. I don't think it's not as good as the Moldbird Plow, and the reason for that is that Moldbird Plow comes down a lot earlier. Swing Plow, it takes a long time for it to come down. When it comes down, the plow spot's going to be a lot more contested, and so it's very hard to like sow off it. But that being said, it takes care of all your fields, so it's quite good in that regard. I think in terms of plows, this is one of my least favorite ones. It only working on one action spot is pretty brutal. You can get blocked a lot of times. But that being said, it's still quite good. It's still like clearly a B tier card. I think it is above, probably above the Toad. Yeah, somewhere around there. Somewhere around like above the Toad is pretty decent, I think. Maybe above Education. Probably above Education Bonus. Probably above the Toad. Maybe below Stork's Nest, below Foreign Aid. Stork's Nest is just a weird card to place, so I think it's better than Moldbird. I don't agree with that. I think it's significant. Well, it's significantly worse. Like, they're pretty close, but it's worse. Thick Forest. Thick Forest is, it's okay. This is a very situational card. Sometimes you will play this and there'll be a lot of wood, but it's very hard to stockpile up clay this early, like early in the game. So for that reason, I will put this in the, I guess, like, bottom of C tier. I think I would rather have this than, like, any of these cards, but, like, it's close. Rather have it than Stone Tongs. Shepherd's Crook is kind of close. Yeah, like, somewhere in there is good. That seems fine. 3-field rotation. 3-field rotation is situationally good, but oftentimes it'll just do nothing. Like, it's situationally good. Situationally, it'll give you a lot of food, but oftentimes it doesn't do much. I think that I will put this in the... This is another card that's, like, C tier, I think. I think it's another C tier card. It's kind of around, like, Thick Forest realm of, like, okay, this card can be okay sometimes, but it's not great. Although, when it pops off, it's really good. When this card pops off, it's, like, quite good. So maybe it's a little bit better than I'm giving it credit for. Maybe I put it a little bit higher in the C tier than otherwise. It can give you a lot of food. Like, if you set it up correctly, it can give you quite a bit of food, and when that happens, it's good. The cost of playing it is relatively small, I think. I'd probably rather have it than Chicken Coop. I'd probably rather have it than Lasso. Rather have it than... Well, a Greenhouse I'd probably rather have. So somewhere around here, maybe. Yeah, somewhere around there is good. Threshing Board. This is another one of these situational cards that's like Flail. It's a lot worse than Flail. I think a point is significantly worse than 2 food. I think 2 food bails you out more often. That being said, it is a card that combos with the Baked Bread. It combos off the Plow Spot, which is not as good. I just realized I have Bread Paddle down here and Flail up here. I think Bread Paddle is pretty significantly better. It's not significantly better than Flail, but it's like comparable to Flail. I'm going to move it around. I'll move it around later. But yeah, Threshing Board, yeah, I mean, it's lower. A wood for a point is good. It's in this field here with the supply boat where, like, it's a wood for a point. That's fine. It has an incidental thing that might be good. It's probably slightly worse than the boat, so we'll put it there for now. Trident. I like Trident a lot. Trident gives you a ton of food. It gives you, like, so much food. And typically, like, round 9, round 12 are turns when you need it. Like, one of the problems with this card is that passing it can add a lot of food to the game, but it's, like, a very good safety valve to have. Getting 3 food in stage 1 is really huge. Getting 6 food in stage 5 is so good with it. Yeah, like, it can sometimes line up poorly, but, like, typically, like, you can always play this in round 12 on start player and then just stick it in someone's hand. It's very good. I think that this is, like, top of B tier as well. This is, like, in that ballpark. That's where I'm feeling. On average, this card is better than Foreign Aid. I don't know if on average is better than Lantern House, though. It's somewhere in this ballpark of things where, like, it's really good, and, like, you typically will... It's very good. It gives you a lot of food. It's it's more playable than Foreign Aid, I think, as, like, a backup plan, but, like... Foreign Aid being free is huge, though. Like, Foreign Aid, when Foreign Aid's good, is good. It's just that you play Trident a little bit more often, so I think that's about right. Truffle Slicer. Truffle Slicer is a card that is only good if you have an insane amount of family members and you need actions to do points with. Like if you're building fast and then you have no wood, it's really good. Like, typically, like, Truffle Slicer is worth, like you're paying, 2 food for 2 points or 3 food for 3 points. That's typically what you're paying for it. Sometimes you can get a little more. Like if you're getting less than that, it's not really a good card to play. If you're getting more than that, then, like, it's pretty insane. I think on average, I would put it in, like, maybe, like, the low B tier. I think probably it's about as good as Sheepwell. The ceiling on this card makes it really insane. Like, the ceiling on this card's quite good. The ceiling on this card is quite good. I think that I would put this... The problem is that the floor on this card is really bad. Like, if you don't take wood actions with it, it's really not good. And getting a board to set this up is really hard to do. It's around the level of Private Forest. I guess I would probably rather have Private Forest than this, maybe. It's somewhere around there. We're going to worry about the details later. I'm going to put it around here for now. We'll worry about the details in a little bit. We're almost done. We're almost at the end, which is crazy. Turn-rest plow. Turn-rest plow is definitely the worst plow of the bunch. It's 3 wood, which is very expensive. It only lets you plow 3 fields once, so it doesn't even cover all your fields. I think it's significantly worse than the other plows. It still feels like a B-tier card to me, but it's quite bad compared to the other plows. I think that I put this... where do I put this? Yeah, I might actually reevaluate swing plow. For whatever reason, I thought swing plow was a different plow. I don't know why I thought swing plow was different. I had to reevaluate the plows, the swing plow versus moldboard plow. I still think moldboard plow is better, but yeah, swing plow is also quite good. But yeah, maybe I'm underrating swing plow a little bit on this list. Moldboard plow, I'll put it. It's pretty low. It's like not great. Like, I put it around, like, this region where, like, I would honestly rather have shifting cultivation than this card. But, like, this card is nice to shore up your fields. Like, that is a good thing. Like, fields are pretty contested. But, like, I think that, I mean, it's around the level of Lumber Mill. Maybe Lumber Mill is slightly better. But it's, like, around that level. I'd rather have shifting cultivation for sure than this card. So, it's around that level. Wildlife Reserve, this card looks like it's nice because it can hold a bunch of animals, but like the reality is that it never holds a breeding pair, and for that reason, it sucks really bad. It's really awkward to play. This card's like a... I think this card might honestly be a D-tier card. This card is not good at all. It's really awkward to play. It typically doesn't give you breeding pairs, so you can only play it if you have like another stable or something like that anyways, in which case, like, okay, why did you not just build the second stable? It's very situational. Like, sometimes it's good with like big country if your animal situation's a little awkward, but like, honestly, I think this card is just like... I think it's honestly just like, it's like around this level of like I think Steam Machine's better, honestly. I think Steam Machine's just better. Yeah, 2 wood's a lot, Steam Machine's better. It's like, you might as well just build a stable with it. The stable's worth the same amount of points, and stable's going to be more efficient. I honestly think Steam Machine's just better than this card. Yeah, it's like around there. I'd rather have a lot of other cards than this. Situationally, it can be good. Situationally, it can be fine to hold animals that you need, but it's very rare. All right, few cards left. Wood cart is so good. I mean, like, this card, typically you're paying 3 wood for it, and, I mean, you're typically taking wood, like, 3 or 4 times after it. So if you take it 3 times, it's worth 3 wood. If you take it 4 times, it's worth 5 wood. So, like, it being worth so much wood is insane. And, like, typically you can stack it up where, like, a 3 wood action is now a 5 wood action. That's enough resources to build a room. Like, that's, like, it stacks up really nicely. It is, like, a... It's a very good card. It's very fun to play around, too. Is this an A-tier card? It's really good. If it's an A-tier, is it better than Mining Hammer? I think it's better than Mining Hammer on average. It's probably better than... paying 3 wood for, like, 5 wood. I mean, it's essentially like a free, like, 5 wood off of a miner, which is pretty insane. And sometimes you get wood discounts, too, and make it nuts. It's really nice, too, in the late game when wood is contested, and you can just take 2 woods and turn it into 4 woods. Like, it's really, really nice. So, is it better than Cattle Market? I think it is. I think it's better than these cards. It's like around here. I think like Milking Stool is a little bit better on average than... Yeah, maybe I have to move the plows around. I'll move the plows around later. Woodfield. I like Woodfield a lot. Woodfield is like a very fun card. I like never use it. I never get to use it, but like in theory it's good. I mean, if you sow wood on it, it's like a 4 wood action early on, which is really nice. I think this card's quite good. It's also food for a point. Food for a point's quite insane. I think that I would put this card in the B tier because it's just like a decent card. I think I put it below this plow. I think that's about right. Put it below this plow. I think that sounds about right to me. It's like an okay card, but like it's food for a bonus point, which is pretty good. Wool blankets. Wool blankets so situational. It's super duper situational. When you play it and you're happy with it, you'll be very happy with it. But this is clearly a D tier card. I think that I would put this in like... Definitely goes in D tier. Where does it go in D tier though? I mean, it's like Manger. It's a little better than Manger, honestly. Like sometimes you use Rhino to claim, that's 2 points. I think it's better than Manger. I think I'd rather have Wool Blankets than Manger most of the time. I think Wool Blankets like has some situational usage. Next, we have Writing Desk. Writing Desk is super good. There are a lot of cards that combo with occupations. Typically, it saves you an action. Typically, it's like a wood and 2 food for a point and an action, which is completely insane. It combos with a lot of other occupation cards. It's a card that like is super good. This is definitely an A tier card. It's very, very good. I don't know how high an A tier. It's not as good as the other occupation cards. I think the ceiling on it is definitely not as good as Carrot Museum, not as good as like Milking Stool, but I think I would honestly rather have this card than Woodcart. I think this card's very good. It combos. It has so many combos with it, and like at worst, it will save you an action always. So it's quite good. But I think that's about a good spot for it. I think that's about where I put it. All right, last card that we have, Young Animal Market. Young Animal Market, super situational card. Not great by any means. Turning a sheep into a cow, you have to have a sheep for that. You have to have sheep that aren't really breeding. It's like the top of D tier. Like, this is a card that I'm never very happy to see, but if I do see it, it's like fine. Like, I think that the other Animal Market might be better. Just because, like, actually, is this, maybe the other Animal Market's a little bit worse than this one. This one's a little bit better, I think. I think turning 1 sheep into 1 cow is a little bit better than turning 2 sheep into, actually, turning 2 sheep is better. I think on average, turning 2 sheep is better. Because, like, when that happens, it's going to be a little bit better. So I think that that's about right. So that's right. All right, we have sorted all the cards, crazily. Thank you if you have sat through all this. We sorted through all the cards. But now I'm going to make some last-minute adjustments. Let's make some last-minute adjustments really quick. Let me look at this. I had Big Country as the most powerful card. I want to adjust some of this, like, top, like, whatever. Some of these top miners are very adjustable. I think I'm happy with almost everything. I think Bookshelf maybe should be higher. Lettuce Patch is so good. Bookshelf is also so good, though. In higher draft games, Bookshelf's going to be better. Man, yeah, I mean, this top 5 are, like, really interchangeable. I mean, like, honestly, like, yeah, I mean, I'm not even going to add a tier above this. I don't think it's worth it. I think that, like, these cards, like, honestly, there are definitely different classes within the A tier. I think Big Country is, like, way, way better than like, something like a, you know, a Writing Desk. But, like, you know, it's not, like, that much better. I mean, like, they're both very powerful cards. I mean, maybe I have to move some stuff down. All right, so I think that Swing Plow taking care of all your fields is, like, completely insane. And I think I was sleeping on Swing Plow when I said this. I don't know why I put this here. I think that here, I'm putting this up. Lettuce Patch is not too high. Lettuce Patch is insane. Lettuce Patch is so insane. I mean, because it is a feeding engine. It is a field. It's worth a point. It's free. It does everything that you need it to do. It's like a way to sow veggies. It's insane. It's completely nuts. It's ridiculous. It always overperforms for me. Every single time I played it, always overperforms. Beanfield's also just great. I mean, it's just good. It's just a food for a point. Like getting free points off miners is so good. Like getting a field. If you could get a field for free that has no points on it, it just is a field. That card would be really good. But Lettuce Patch is a field for free that gives you a point that, in addition, it feeds you because it turns your veggies into 4 food, which is better than any conversion barring some very specific card like Schnaps Distiller or something like that. So it's like so good. I think that, yeah, Swing Plow I need to move up to A tier. Swing Plow is actually quite good. I'm actually just going to put it next to this plow. I think they do very similar things. I think that it's like about right there. I might move all of this stuff down to B tier, actually. The more that I look at it, the more that I'm just like, okay, Milk Jug is very different than Big Country. Yeah, I might do something like this. I'm going to move all of this down a tier, I think. I'm going to move this all down. Actually, God. Yeah, I might do something like this. I think that like this card, the horse-drawn boat is like pretty insane. Yeah, I think Moldbird's like, it's very similar to Swing Plow, but like I'll put it a tier down. I think this is my A tier. I feel pretty good about this. The top like 6 cards are so interchangeable. It's going to depend on what else you're doing. Almost all the draft formats have miners being drafted after occupation. So like the top 10 cards, there are always situations like all these top cards above Sleeping Corner. There are situations situations where I would pick this card over any of these other cards. There's always situations that I would pick this card over any of the other cards. I don't think I have any exceptions to that, actually. There's always a situation where I'd pick one of these cards over all these other ones. These bottom 5, maybe there's like arguments, but like I think they're a little bit above the rest of the tier. I don't know. Maybe I should move them down or something like that. Maybe I can make another tier. Maybe I should make another tier. Let's make an S tier really quick. Let's make an S tier. Let's add a row above. Let's make an S tier. Let me do this really quick. So let's make an S tier. I'm gonna move all this up to S tier. We're gonna have this in my S tier here. Whoops, like this. These are all in S tier now. Healed fences, this. And then in A tier, we're gonna start it like this. Because I think this is a more natural cutoff here. And we're gonna have our A tier going like this here. Whoops. I want this above the trident, right? Oh, no, I want trident above this. Okay, I want trident above this. Stork's Nest, this, education bonus, handy plow as well. This is also A tier, also A tier, also A tier, also A tier. Now I start getting to more sketchy cards. I think probably the field being the start B tier is fine. Let me evaluate the A tier really quick, make sure I'm not going to change anything in terms of order. Let me also look at chat. Bottles, super low. I find it to be bad super often. I really find it to be bad very often. I'm not a big fan of it at all. I think it's like almost always a mistake to play. I always am like sad when I play it. I always see a lot of other people play it and see it be a mistake. And yeah, B tier. Yeah, half timbered house. Half timbered house there is fine. I think that's fine. In the B tier. Is there anything I want to move around? B tier is looking kind of sus. I could put this in the B tier maybe. We'll move some stuff up. I'm trying to look for like natural separation. I think there's a big separation between like clay delivery card and like shifting cultivation. Granary. Yeah, that could be the case for B tier. Yeah, like B tier cards are like all like okay, but they're a little mopier. This card, B tier, yeah, I'm fine with this. I'm fine with this. This card, I'm like a little bit unhappy about. I'm a little less happy about these cards. Although, like, really, I feel similarly about small greenhouse as I do about any of these cards. Maybe fishing net is the cutoff. Maybe fishing net's the cutoff here between B and C tier. I think fishing net, I'm like pretty not happy about any of these cards. Maybe chicken coop I should move up to. Chicken coop maybe should be like the cutoff for C tier, because chicken coop I'm also like, I think I'm a little low on chicken coop here. I think I should raise it. Half Timbered House deserves A tier. See, like, this is the thing. A lot of people are arguing that it should be that Chicken Coop is like lower. A lot of people are arguing it should be higher. I think it's like in the middle. I think that like the floor is super. Like, it's really hard to play. When you can play it, it's very good. But like it's a lot more flexible than any of the other point cards. Like Bottles is so much harder to play than Half Timbered House, for example. So I think maybe Chicken Coop here is fine. I mean, it's so hard to play though. Like, it's really hard to play. I honestly still would rather have a fishing net. I'd rather have a fishing net than chicken coop, honestly. I think honestly I'd rather have fishing net. I think fishing net's just like a little bit easier to play. It's close though. Like, it's close between those two things. I think this is a good cutoff point. And then for C tier, let's think about this. Lasso still feels a little high, but this feels like the right group of things for Lasso. This feels like the right group of things for Lasso. Maybe it's like a little lower, but not that much lower. I mean, honestly, this is about the right spot for Lasso. 3-field rotation can be quite good. This feels good for these cards. Are there any cards I'm underrating? Maybe we'll move Muckrake up a little bit. I think Muckrake I like a lot more than a lot of these cards. Maybe like here. I like Acorn a lot too. Acorn's Basket I probably should move up a little bit too. I'd rather have Acorn's Basket than like a lot of these cards. Yeah, I'd rather have Acorn's Basket than like all these cards here. I'd rather have Acorn's Basket than all these cards. Maybe I'd rather have Acorn's Basket than like some of the other stuff too in the tier above it. Acorn's Basket is really good. Yeah, I actually think I'm moving Acorn's Basket quite a lot. I don't know why I put it so low. Yeah, I put it pretty high. Acorn's Basket's very good. When you can play Acorn's Basket, it's like so nice to play. Yeah, maybe like about there is good. Maybe above the Stone card is fine. That seems good to me. Stone card could also be a natural cutoff for this. All right, so we'll put this here. That's fine. All right, C tier. We have Anything? I'm looking for anything that looks sus. Looks fine to me. I think this is a natural point between this card's like a natural point between C and D tier. I think this card's just like a little bit worse. I think this card's a little bit better. D tier. Yeah, Junk Room like looks low, but honestly, Junk Room just always underperforms when I play Junk Room. Is Bottles too low? I guess that I would rather... Bottles is like... Yeah, I would rather have Brook than Bottles. Would I rather have Steam Machine than Bottles? Might have rather have Bottles than Steam Machine. Which means I'd rather have Dwelling Mound. Well, I think Recycled Brick is fine too. Maybe Recycled Brick is a little bit better than I'm giving it credit for. Maybe it's a little bit better than I'm giving it credit for. No, Sculpture is definitely D. Sculpture is bad. Sculpture is very hard to play. It's very bad. I seldom play it. If you kill your game trying to play Sculpture, it sucks. Like, I hate Sculpture a lot. Like, there are these cards like Sculpture and Bottles that, like, are point ceiling cards that are identically good with Big Country. With Big Country, they're very good. Without Big Country, they're just, like, not great. I don't think that they're better than D tier. And then my least favorite card is this over Basket, but honestly, it doesn't really matter. Yep, I'm happy with this tier list. All right, this is the final tier list. This is it. This is the final tier list. This is how I feel. Big Country is the best card. I don't think it's close. I think Big Country is a little bit too good. But, like, honestly, all the top 10, like, you could rearrange them in some order, and I think that, like, there's something that's justifiable there. I think anything in that S tier I would pick over anything in the A tier pretty easily. I think that, like, the only exception is Carrot Museum, and maybe this means I should put Carrot Museum a little lower, because Carrot Museum is a card that, like, is way too specific for a lot of these cards. Like you need a very specific setup for Carrot Museum. Like, Carrot Museum you're picking a lot less frequently than the rest of these cards, but when it's good, it's very good. Yeah, maybe Carrot Museum's a little lower. Maybe I'll drag Carrot Museum down a little bit. But yeah, I think this is the rest of my tier list. So, all right, do you agree? Do you disagree? Thank you for watching this video. I hope you have a good one.